Welcome back to the Smoking Hot Nerds. What's it been, like a year, guys?
Everybody.
Goodness, too long. Too long.
It's been a bit.
Yeah. How's everyone holding up? Looks like you guys got plenty of toys for the quarantine.
I'm laid off, all right? I mean, I'm great. I'm good. I'm fine.
Are you good, though? That's the thing. I want you to be good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm assuming I'm 50-50 on if I've got it or not. But, those could be worse odds.
Yeah, Mom still got it.
Yeah.
Good Arrested Development line. Mom still got it.
Mom still got it.
Benico, your job is status quo?
I'm good. Yeah, I do have, fortunately, one of those nice internet-based positions where we always make the joke of I could do my job from a beach. Well, now I get to do my job from the man cave, and still gotta power the paperwork behind. Can I say where I work now? Sure, why not?
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm still doing the internet back-end software for the Wynn and Encore Casino in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the loyalty program and the pricing engine and all that kind of fun stuff that's still got to happen, because we're going to come out of this, and as soon as we do, people are going to want to get out of their homes. So we want to be the place where they come. So we got to be ready for them.
Yep, they're gonna get their grubby fingers all over those slot machines.
Right, yeah. No sanitizer. And as we all know, I'll be leaving my full-time position at Leprino Foods to take my business full-time in 2 weeks. So how's that for timing?
Hey,
you got all the free time in the world.
Yeah. It's exciting though. I got a lot of amazing clients and some good work to do right now, and good work coming up. So it'll be fun. At the very least, we'll do podcasting. We'll make YouTube videos and entertain people with content.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Speaking of content, so if in the event that we're stuck in our houses for 2 weeks, I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about what we should be watching, because obviously Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, you name it, there's no shortage of awesome
Disney
content.
Plus. Oh yeah.
Disney Plus. Yes. So what immediately comes to mind must watch?
Well, that's I mean, there's must watches, but then I think, what if we go by viewership accessibility?
Mm-hmm. So
like general cable, and then step up to like some of the paid options.
There you go. Yeah.
Just get out. I don't want to immediately go, if you haven't seen The Mandalorian,
right.
drop money on Disney Plus right now. Watch
but
it
that
twice.
said, if you haven't seen
I was
The
starting with
Mandalorian,
Clone Wars, so okay, let me rethink this.
Well,
also a good choice.
You want to be in touch with like the current trending topics, but then there are absolutely some classics that you can go back and like power watch throughout the day. That, depending on your
Outbreak.
nature and background.
Well, I haven't watched regular TV except for Forged in Fire, the bladesmithing show. That's pretty much it for probably 2 or 3 years. And so
my favorite
what
reality show.
Yeah, it's
ever,
amazing.
Probably.
It's a great show.
Yep.
And I think there's probably 4 or 5 seasons at this point, so plenty to watch. I think they just put some up on either Netflix or Amazon, so there's a bunch of that up. But what's on normal TV right now that's awesome?
I was gonna go HBO. Hold on, one sec.
I mean,
that's a trick, because like a lot of things are on break right now in that weird break time. But a lot of the great shows are ending, like Modern Family. This is their final season. The standard classics that I don't watch, but like Grey's Anatomy, those type of stuff, they're still powering through. But yeah, I've been, oddly unlike you, I've also been moving away from the standard, like the big fives, and moving into other stuff. Obviously for me, Lego Masters on Fox. I've been watching the heck out of that. I have mixed feelings about it. Yeah, but I watch it.
So that's Will Arnett, right? Hosting.
Yeah.
Yes.
But these are people who are established Lego builders. Yeah.
For the most part, it's so my
TV
issue
ready.
Yes,
right.
my issue with it
I think
is
that's
that
pretty important. There's probably amazing builders that will never be on this show.
That's correct.
Right, yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But it's also because it's a competition. There's also a very heavy reality-based formula where, let's say there are 10 teams. there's 3 of them that are elimination fodder. Like, great people, not saying that, but like, you can tell from day one that 3 of these teams don't belong here.
He's so nice, but he has no hands.
Yeah, like they did interesting work, but you knew that the producers put him in because they had to cut people in the beginning, and they might have gotten in because they have an amazing story. Like, there's these 2 soccer moms that were empty nesters, and we're like, well, we transitioned from taking care of our kids to building Lego. Like, oh, cool. And then, like, the first thing they build was garbage.
I love that. Yeah.
I have other issues with it too, but at the end of it, like the work that they produce, a lot of it is really great. So if I just
let's talk about
like,
your issues. What kind of issues could a man have with a Lego show?
I for the
coming from the Lego
I'm
master
curious,
himself, of course.
So legitimately, my issues are, I think it's more like the Iron Chef formula, which is the Iron Chef, that show from like the 90s and brought over here. It always made it seem like when they walked in, it was like, surprise, Squid Ink. And then they would spend an hour and a half and produce the most elaborate meals with like the
magically
ingredients
off the top of their hat. They know what to do with.
Yeah.
So that's my
sea
issue.
urchin.
They tell them like, okay, you've got to build. Yeah, you have to build a cityscape in 8 hours with 2 people, and it's like, listen, I have literally tens of thousands of bricks worth of proof that says you cannot build an entire city in 8 hours. It's just not a thing. I mean, the Millennium Falcon, which is 8,000 pieces, took me 24 hours to build, and I had parts and instructions. So I can't believe that they build some of this stuff with 2 people in like 8 hours with no previous instruction, and they have to go get their parts. Like, that's the problem I have, is the logistics of it. Now, the part I do like though is the work that they're kicking out at the end. Some of it is phenomenal. It is amazing work. So from a creative standpoint, it's like, holy. But the fake reality stress, I could do without.
So see, that's what I want to talk about, because I feel like this Lego show can be great in the way that Forged in Fire can be, where they're not manufacturing drama when the act itself is interesting.
Yeah.
But I think so it's like Project Runway. There's been all these shows over the years that they're like, oh, well, the drama is all of it. You have to have all these people that are, and they're freaking out. And like the best thing, and we'll talk about Forged in Fire more, but at its basis, it's the, bladesmithing itself is so challenging, and so many things can go wrong, that just to try and do it within a very constricted time is already all the drama you need. And so they don't have to manufacture anything more. All they have to do is go, hey, they make drama, they make it challenging, and they give these guys almost insurmountable hurdles, and then they come up with whatever they make. But that's all. It's not, hey, we're gonna throw in it. It's just, it speaks for itself, and you say, hey, I can respect this thing. It's not people bickering.
The best thing about that show, and it, in a way, I think every reality show could take a note from their book, that they don't create human drama. And what's interesting is the judges are harsh and truthful, but they're super cool. And they're not dicks about it. They're just cool about it, and they're like, "Hey, we respect you as an artist, but this thing looks terrible." And I love that they're actually super respectful about it, because I think
that's even secondary for the most part, right? Like the visual aesthetic is kind of secondary. If the thing is functional, it can look like a clunkin' whatever, but
that's actually
like,
kind of the cool thing about it too.
It stood up.
Yeah,
you need to make a thing to go through tests. It's not, well, my personal opinion is I'm more of a fan of antler handles instead of micarta or what's the
There's a little bit. There's a little bit of that with the Lego show. Like they had, the last one they did was actually a really cool challenge where they had a 6-foot expanse, and they had to use only Lego to build a bridge, and then they put weight on it. They put literal weight on it. And of course there's like the guy who's teaching engineering students and using Lego to demo and all that kind of fun stuff. And then there was a family, a husband and wife, that were just great creators, but had solid building practice. And they built a bridge that held 1,000 pounds, and they had to stop them because they're like, it's not safe. Like, we could probably go more, but it's not safe. And then you had a team that they engineered the bejesus out of it, and it also held 1,000 pounds. That's amazing. Like that's not, you don't stumble across that kind of functionality. That's not like, oh, I snapped some stuff together and it did this. Then they had another team that didn't know a lot about what they were doing, had some basic principles, and it held like 120 pounds. I mean, it just shuddered right away. So that's the kind of stuff that's like realistic. But they had an elimination where, so here's the kicker with that bridge thing was, if two teams tied, then it would come down to visual representation. So it was like, all right. So at the end of the day, it's still somebody's opinion on the work, which is okay. And it's where I would transition. I think a good combo between the two shows, I think I talked about it before, was Face Off on Sci-Fi with the movie makeup.
Yeah.
Where that stuff is hard to work with. And they give them the time crunch pressure, but they show that there's, hey, we're going to give you 4 hours of design. So they show you like, this is the process. You could be the greatest sculptor on earth, but if you screw up and lock a mold, sorry, man, you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was the same thing with like Forged. That's where it's like Forged, where if you get the mixture wrong, if you get the chemistry wrong, and that stuff doesn't melt and seal, sorry, man. But on the flip side, it still has, in that world, it still has to look good. Like, you could have the most beautifully crafted model, but if the challenge was like make an alien and you make a toy robot, it's like, hey man, like, this is great, but it's not what we asked for. It's not part of the challenge. You totally borked this. Like, you messed this part up.
I love
Face Off. And granted, Forged in Fire, when they do tie, when both weapons like perform for that final challenge on par with each other, then they do say, oh, hey, this one guy that did all these little flourishes, he wins. But it's never been like, even that has never been, well, my gut says this. Like, you look and you go, this old guy that made a beautiful thing, but he didn't put all this time into it, and the young upstart who really made a beautiful looking thing, the upstart won. Obviously. So there's never been a feeling of like, oh, okay, random. It's like what's that, you guys watch that holiday baking competition show? That's very similar in, like, I think the Lego show is the same type of thing. Of like, there's a bunch of teams, and then they have like a mini challenge in each episode, and then they have a grand challenge, right? And there's like, oh, you can get a free pass, or, if you win the mini challenge
or whatever,
you get some sort of bonus for the final. So,
it's the Forged in Fire is cool because, I mean, I'm sure other shows have done this, but it's inspired tons of upstart bladesmiths.
Oh, for sure.
It's created basically a resurgence in an industry that was all but dead and sort of like relegated to just people in their backyards and stuff, which it still is, but it's visible now, and it's something that people really take or think is really cool. I follow some of those guys on Instagram now. This guy named Neil, I think he was on the first season, and the stuff he makes is mind-blowing. Even some of the guys who didn't do well or maybe got kicked out in the first round or their blade broke, the work that they do when they've got more than just 3 hours is out of control. So it really created a whole new industry within the industry and makes people interested in it. Made me interested in it. I still want to try it at some point in time. Just haven't gotten around to it, but
oh, sure.
It's pretty
it's
cool.
probably similar to cosplay, how that has exploded. And this whole like kind of maker maker explosion
culture.
that we have right now. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. That's where geek culture and creation culture have merged in this wonderful way.
Definitely. So we got Forged in Fire, we got the holiday Christmas baking challenge. We got Face Off, and what was the other one you mentioned, Nico? What was the first one we started talking about?
Oh, Lego Masters.
Oh, the Lego Masters. Yeah. Nice. Where were we going with HBO, Eric?
Curb Your Enthusiasm was my first one.
Just get in there and just start from the beginning.
Well, because there's a new season running right now, and it's pretty great. Yeah, and that's but certainly And this probably isn't the case right now. I would say years ago when I first started watching it, it was maybe 3 seasons in or something. And I feel like the improv was still pretty rough. Like now you watch them and they're just so relaxed and they're so into it that I think for someone coming in now, they probably wouldn't feel what I felt. But yeah, years ago, there was still that clunkiness of like, oh, I have to get over this improv-y feel.
Yeah.
Where now it's just like, it's fine. They've
Like
done it so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
would definitely dig into Westworld if you haven't already. I think the new season comes out soon, or did it come out already?
I
the
think
first episode came out.
Was it the episode or was it a preview? It's on my DVR. I don't have.
Yeah,
it.
the first episode's out. Okay. I don't know how I felt about the second season. I thought they got a little convoluted, but
I didn't actually watch the second season. I watched the first season only.
Well,
so
I enjoyed the first
Spoiler
season.
alert! It gets convoluted.
Well,
there's a second season.
It's a Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother, writes it, and I think they got a little up their own assholes about we got to make this complex web of, and they just went too many layers of wackadoodleness and going, oh, we're jumping time back and forth, and one of the main characters has amnesia on top of all this, and then and you're like, okay, guys, too much.
It was a lot. But I think what they did, which is interesting on HBO, is I think people are starting to write knowing that people are the common term is binge watching, but I like power watching. I think they're writing knowing that people are going to binge watch, so that they don't necessarily have to have clean starts and finishes. They know you're not going to wait a week. They know if you do watch this, you're either waiting a week and you're a fan, or you're power watching it, so they can just run the story straight through and basically put out an 8-hour movie, and just cut it at certain points in time and try to
that's
wrap
basically
stuff
what
up.
it is. Yeah,
so
that's kind of how it used to be, though. I mean, before things were episodic or serial. Now I'm getting my terms confused.
I mean, full season arcs.
Yeah, you would have a full season arc, and it sort of just felt like it was a 24-hour movie that got chopped up, but you had to wait. As opposed to the more episodic ones that didn't necessarily have a through line like MASH or whatever. You'd have some things that you picked up here and there, but it was more just one-off episodes throughout there. But yeah, I really Did you guys watch Chernobyl yet?
Oh yeah,
I have not.
No, me
I
neither.
know I should.
Oh yeah, that's a great miniseries.
Yeah,
they did a really good job with because I'm going to geek out. I wrote a paper on it in high school.
We are the nerds. Oh, you did?
Yeah, I wrote a paper
What did
on
you get?
Chernobyl.
About this show? What?
I had so much foresight.
But he got amnesia. And
Did
he
you get the
didn't remember.
casting right?
I screwed up the casting. No, I wrote it in Miss Frank's class in the fundamentals of composition class.
There you go.
I got an A on it. But
Chernobyl, starring Christy Brinkley and Kathy Ireland.
Absolutely.
Yeah, David Schwimmer
that time.
But they did a good job.
entire
of
cast.
He dies 5 minutes in.
It's just those two walking around Russia. No accent.
It's just his face melts off. And then David Schwimmer's face melts off. They're like, what do you have against David Schwimmer? Nothing. He's fine. His face just melts off and all the falls off and he eats it and then he blows up. What?
That totally happened.
I got nothing against
totally
him.
Perfect.
You don't know that didn't happen.
Oh, man.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good.
No, we're talking about
But no,
your
they
paper.
did a good job of remaining politically impartial. They just laid out the facts of what happened, because it was kind of it's an unprecedented event. The people literally just did the best they could with what they knew and what they had, and the denouement of what happened scientifically is mind blowing. And they even say it in the movie. They're like, "There's no way you couldn't have known." Like there are so many moving pieces. There's a big scene in the very end where he's in the court, he's at the tribunal, and he's got a good and a bad chart, and he starts adding stuff to the good chart and then adding stuff to the bad chart, which then he basically shows this 37 something plus scenario of nonsense that occurred, and then the one linchpin moment that screwed it up, that was kind of like Apollo 11 or the one that blew up, that like it was something that happened years prior to this event. Like it was something that
Right.
it wasn't like somebody walked in and flipped a switch. This was something that was laid in place years in advance, years prior to the event. That like, yeah, it's a thing. But they did a really good job of not of recognizing all the people for the heroic stuff they did, but not taking like a super political slant on it. Just like facts, science.
That's good.
And then amazingly good story. Yeah, it's super good.
Because that's the thing that you could always take from any of these things is what were the politics of the time, what was the general culture, that sort of thing that leads to things like this. But I think what ties everything together, what makes it really fascinating, is when you just tell the human story. You tell about, because that's the thing, is like there's people out there right now. We can talk about how upset you could be about the government's response and this and that, but the truth is we should be giving all of our love to the nurses and doctors and teachers and people who have been boots on the ground during all of this stuff and trying to really maintain and keep things status quo, not to mention just moms and parents and people who are now homeschooling their kids and things like that. That's the story that we're going to tell about coronavirus. We're not going to tell the story about what people did or didn't do in government and stuff like that. Right. And I think that's what makes art beautiful. Have a little bit of it, just a little touch, a little smidge of the politics of the time, because it's certainly relevant. But
certain components.
Well, but again, if it's politics of that time, that's fine. But I think when people want to say, we're going to tell the historical story, but we're wanting to beat you over the head that look how it parallels with now. And you're like, I get it. You don't have to spell it out. And the more they spell it out, the more, even if you agree with it, you're like, it's a turnoff. Yeah.
It's a huge turnoff. And that's I listened to Alec Baldwin's podcast, Here's the Thing, and he has a lot of actors on there, but he has a lot of old actors and people who came up in the 60s, 70s and stuff. And so it's super cool to hear them talk about stuff. But one of the cool things that they go into is sort of this was the time, and this is why such and such movie didn't work, but now it's considered a classic, and so the history of it. But I'm always like have an ear to it, like waiting for them to go, but what about Trump, which they thankfully don't, because that's the thing. If you try to impart your current political values on yet a retelling of a historic story, that's where things just get real
it doesn't
watery
apply.
and
It's
not
so
attractive.
different.
But so HBO, do you guys have Hulu? I don't actually have Hulu.
I don't have Hulu.
Yeah.
I do, but that's only for like spot stuff. But on HBO, if we're still there, I just watched, tried to do it back to back, watched The Outsider and Avenue 5, which are two diametrically different programs.
Right.
But so I'll preface The Outsider. It's Stephen King. So this is going to sound terrible. So for 85%, it's great. And then for 15%, he doesn't know how to finish the story. So the ending...
Is it a book or is it...
Yeah, it's his. He wrote it. So this one, though, in fairness to it, is one of his better endings. So it has... it's like Jason Bateman is producing. He directs like the first 3 episodes. He's like the headliner in it.
Is it where he's accused of a murder? Is that the one? Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. Yeah,
I don't want to say a lot because it's a lot. But yeah, he's accused.
But there's no ending.
But there's no ending. No, there's an ending, but it's definitely it's one of his. It's I'm trying to think. Well, there's lots of really good examples of bad endings, but they clean it up nicely. They button it up nicely for a show. But they definitely said it was the season finale, not the series finale. And I definitely could see where they left room to make this like a second season type show.
Right.
Do you think with the same story or more like an anthology series?
But I
guess if you're saying they left something open,
if I answer it, it kind of spoils the show.
That's fine.
Don't do it.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm just saying, like, I like to call it the no thank you bite. Give it like the 3 episode try.
Yeah.
And if you're in, finish it out. But if you give it the 3 episodes and you're like, meh, then you know what, you're probably safe to walk
Yeah.
away from that one. There's
So-
very little
Right.
shows that I would say you get to that 3 episode and just power through, make it through. But there's certain shows where you get to the 3 episodes and you're like, I think they've kind of wrapped this up. I'm good. You feel free to walk away. This is one that like maybe power through unless you're really not into the Stephen King-y type stuff. The other show, Avenue 5, is it's kind of like a mix between kind of like a who's the guy who did Family Guy?
Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah, it's like the Orville kind of,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, so it's like the
bit.
Orville, but on a luxury
yeah,
yacht.
with Hugh Laurie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Josh Gad and
Yeah,
some
it's
other
the
folks.
space yacht that has a Poseidon adventure in space, kind of. as
Yeah,
a slow
exactly.
moving.
And it's but it's kooky in that it has one thing I like, which is dialogue that doesn't stop and explain a joke. They'll make a joke and just power right across the top, and if you didn't get it, sorry, next time.
Yeah.
Like they'll just keep powering through, but then they will be smart enough to kind of roll them back in, so you have these like long running gags, and like it's really good. But that's the one I could see where that's a good like a no thank you bite type show where give it the 3, and if it just has like you're just not in tempo with it, you can probably cut it loose.
Yeah,
the
that one
Orville
I
was
had
mine. Where I was
trouble.
just like,
Yeah, I've done that with
it was a
both.
big no thank you bite after I think episode 1, where I was like, nope, I'm good. And I don't know, I'm just not a Family Guy, and so his
Family Guy person. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not a
I'm
Family
not
Guy
a Family
little
Guy
person.
individual.
But I interrupted what you were saying, Eric.
Oh no, I was saying. So yeah, Avenue 5 was one I was intrigued by, and for me, I'm almost. So the Orville was the same thing. I made myself get to like the 3rd episode, and I tried to watch the 3rd episode twice, and I was just like,
Yeah.
I think the jokes just need to end because clearly they don't want to make. I think he just wants to make Star Trek Next Generation straight up.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's
Yeah,
all
yep.
he wanted to do. And so I couldn't get past the lazy jokes that just felt like they were slapped on top,
Yeah.
after the script was written. And
Yeah.
so I couldn't get through that. But a lot of people do love that show. And a lot of Next Generation people love that show. And the same thing kind of with, I think my thing with Avenue 5, and maybe I should give it more of a chance because as, clearly that it's a show that they start the disaster pretty quick, and it just is a slow
Yep.
unravel where it just amps. Like I'm catching ends of it when I'm going into Curb Your Enthusiasm, so I'm like seeing the last 5 minutes, and
right.
I'm like, oh yeah, things are getting batshit. Okay, but for me, I was like, I think I wanted more grounding at the beginning of it, but again, maybe that doesn't matter. So yeah, for me, I was
But
like, they
see-
just kind of started too quickly in like wackiness, and I'm like, I get it, I get the premise, and I guess I shouldn't need grounding, but I needed a little something else. I don't know. I needed
It's a
something
tough one,
before
man, 'cause
it went
that's
off, before the plot kicks off.
It's sort of, I mean, we've seen it forever, but the first time I noticed it was like with Firefly, where the first episode that they aired of Firefly was not the first episode of Firefly. It was like the 3rd episode, and it was an episode that was that train heist episode, which was sort of a standalone, and they wanted to give the audience something punchy and big and get them invested. But that's one of the reasons why the show ended up failing, is because you never gave them groundwork upon which to care about the characters. And so that's the thing, and I think that happens a lot. I think maybe a little bit less in OTT because they're like, well, you're already here, so you're going to sit for it. But they're going to try to get you right into the swim of things right away without really laying the groundwork. And it's sort of like, I feel like it's very similar to building a culture. You want to build a culture that takes a little bit of time for you to get used to it, but once you're in it, you're kind of in the family and you really want to be a part of it. And that's how shows need to start. But a lot of times, they're just, you're on the ship, everything, goes down right away, and it's in a hope to capture the audience's attention, but I think you're short-sighting the audience, or what's underselling.
Well,
it
they
or
don't
something.
get to go on the journey then with the characters. I feel like the shows that are usually that have broad appeal have that character that gets to kind of come into that world and is leading you through it to some degree.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Avenue 5, maybe it has that person with the woman that's like the kind of mechanic lady. I don't know.
Well, it's supposed to be their relationship, but it tries to use. I don't want to call them flashbacks, but just references to Earth as that grounding. But yeah, it definitely when we saw the first episode, I think we literally went back to make sure we weren't watching like the third one. Like it just we literally felt like we had missed something. So it took a second to kind of like ramp into it. But then once they give you like the immediate threat, you're like, okay, so this is my moving forward. This is my baseline, and then they do introduce new characters. But if you've ever been in a scenario like that where you know that there's just like this weird mix of people types, like people watching, then you can like, okay, so now here comes like the quirky person, and here comes the science guy, and then here comes like the couple that's happy, and here comes the couple that hates each other. Like they start to build those tropes in, so it builds a familiarity without you having to know, like, I didn't need to watch each passenger board the ship, and I didn't need to watch the ship take off. They kind of roll it back, but it definitely had that feeling of, we went back to check the DVR, like, wait, is this episode 3 or hold on, did we miss like a 1 hour pre-movie thing, because it is HBO?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, did I miss the Avenue Zero? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
which I think goes to your
it's
point.
a funny show.
So maybe I should.
Might give it a chance, give it a shot. I got to get on. So I was gonna say, as far as HBO, also, it's a couple years old now. But the night of, did you guys see that series?
Oh yeah.
It was. I think that it might be an anthology at some point. Maybe it was just gonna be that. But it was Riz Ahmed plays a Muslim
College
American
student.
who's accused of murder. And then John Turturro plays his lawyer, and it's one of the best series of TV, I think, that I've seen in a really long time, maybe ever, just because of relationships and everything. But it had a beautiful way of wrapping up the show, and it's just a really amazing show. Definitely worth the 10 episodes.
Something like
episodes,
that, yeah.
maybe something like that. But
that's a good
really,
binge.
really
That's
great.
a good one.
Oh, and if you're in any way interested in film and cinematography, it's a beautifully shot
Absolutely.
show.
Well, yeah, because they do.
The look is amazing.
Aside from the title, they do a lot of stuff at night with things that you need to be able to see. So it's not just, we've got a night shot in a car. Like, no, there's stuff you need to see: faces, reactions, expressions, conversation. All that stuff has to happen at night, which is difficult. It's they're
really,
super
really
good.
well made. But I like Riz Ahmed a lot. I think he's a phenomenal actor. First time I saw him was in Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
And he just kind of plays this really weird sort. Just the character was like very jittery and weird. And I thought he was like a guy they just found on the street. That's how real he felt as an actor in that show, or in that movie. So then when I saw him in Rogue One, it's like, oh, this guy's a legit.
What's he
actor,
in Rogue
man.
One?
He's the pilot with the message.
Pilot
with the goggles.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then in this show, it's a completely different look, because I believe he's British.
Yep.
So his chameleon attributes are amazing. But Nightcrawler, way off topic from TV right now, but if you haven't seen Nightcrawler, I mean, it's a real
It's a
gritty,
dark movie.
dirty.
That's the Gyllenhaal movie.
Yeah,
right?
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a dark watch. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Who's the guy who kind of fixed Rogue One? Tony Gilroy. It's his brother wrote and directed Nightcrawler, and Jake Gyllenhaal and
Amy Adams.
Renee Russo's in it.
Renee Russo.
And,
Brilliant in that movie. She's so good, and I think Bill Paxton's in it. That's who's in it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Bill Paxton.
and he's phenomenal in it as well. So, but great movie, something to look up for sure. A little dark, a little sad, a little depressing. So don't go into it.
But
feeling
a
like you
hell
get
of a
picked me up.
character though. Like the character
Jake
that
Gyllenhaal's
Gyllenhaal
brilliant in
plays.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
HBO. I don't know.
Veep. I feel like that was a show that I didn't really watch, and then I would catch because I was watching something else when maybe it's just the end of Game of Thrones and Veep had its final season as well.
Right.
And just seeing, like, again, I didn't watch it, but like I would just watch a couple episodes of that last season, and having no idea who any of these people were, it was like firing on the highest cylinders. I was like, oh my goodness, this is a show that I definitely need to watch.
You gotta circle back on for sure.
That was I haven't gotten I don't have a fridge over here. I'm gonna get like a mini fridge for the bubbly
your
water.
White Claws, what do you drink?
There's a sale on Corona Seltzer. He's going nuts.
It's virgin White Claw. This one is Ice Mountain sparkling water, black cherry essence.
Not a sponsor.
Why is your face like that? Why? Yeah, you're like.
I was gonna make some connection to Ice Mountain and Game of Thrones, but it didn't come together, so I just left it. I just made a dumb face while I
thought you were gonna go.
The gears were turning.
Ice Mountain, Jake Gyllenhaal, Brokeback Mountain.
Well, when you made the comment about the baking show,
King.
I was trying to come up with something good, and I was just like, timing's not right. I haven't watched that since I was a little girl or something like that, but it just wasn't working.
It just didn't happen.
Yeah. So I don't want to jump too far out of the thing, but one thing that I absolutely loved, it's on Netflix. Everything I shoot right now is documentary style, and I'm working on 2 features, so I'm really into documentaries right now. And The Pharmacist is on Netflix is amazing. Like,
that's new, right?
Yeah, it came out a couple weeks ago. I think maybe 3-4 weeks ago. But doesn't go where you think it's going to go, wraps up what you think is the story in about an episode and a half. And then you're like, well, there's still like 4 more episodes. I don't get what's going on. And it's good. And again, from a filmmaking standpoint, if you're into documentaries and you want to make stuff like that, the way that they shot it is really beautiful. It was really, the B-roll's great. The story stuff, the narrative stuff is great, but the interviews themselves are just shot incredibly well. Yeah. It's great movie. Great show.
I'm confusing all my free networks, or not free networks, but I'm trying to think. We just watched something on Netflix.
Besides the Taylor Swift documentary, which I did watch and I loved.
Clearly.
So,
what's it called?
Miss Americana.
Take your money.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm still here.
Miss Americana.
Miss Americana.
I'm fascinated
Miss
with artists at the highest level. To see what they do and what their brains are like and what they're going through is like fascinating to me. And it's very much like is it 5'2" or 5'4"? I'm not sure how tall Lady Gaga is, but the documentary about her that's also on Netflix, same thing.
It's not called Meat Suit?
Yes.
No,
who the hell made this? They should call it a meat suit. Sorry.
It's 5'2" in a meat suit.
5'2" with a meat suit and the eyes of blue.
Okay. But to see what they do and think and go through and their public personas versus just, okay, well, I'm going there. It's like the Notting Hill moment with Julia Roberts, where she's like, I'm just a girl talking to a boy asking him to love me. It's like that. They're just like, I'm just a girl making music. I just want you to love me. What's the problem?
I'm a human.
Yeah, I'm just a human.
Look at me. I'm just I puke and wipe my butt like you. Yeah.
Well, if you can find the toilet paper.
It's true.
It's true. Yeah. Well, they bidet themselves probably.
Yeah. That was the joke.
Nice.
I was going to say something on that Facebook post about
a bidet joke.
TP. I have a bidet. It doesn't matter. Something like that. But what were you talking? What were you thinking, Nick?
So I went back through my browsing history of Netflix. The show You, Y-O-U.
Nope.
Yeah, negative. You, Y-O-U. It's about
you.
It's called You.
Bees?
Yeah. It's about a guy who irrationally falls in love with a woman and basically becomes like a very serious stalker scenario.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So there's 2 seasons of that. The first one's good. The second season of that goes bonkers town, but in like the best way. Like, because you think like, oh, I know this story. He's a stalker, and that's the end of it. And then they have the second season. You're like, what can you show me? And then they totally flip it, and I think they did a great job.
Does she stalk him?
No.
I mean, that would be flipping it.
I mean,
that's what the police tell her.
Not wrong,
There's
but
one way to deal with these guys. You have to
season
stalk
1
them.
I also watch. I mean, it's super nerdy, but The Witcher.
Oh yeah.
Oh
no,
yes, The
everybody
Witcher.
talked to
That's
loves
what I
that
was
show.
forgetting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was.
I enjoyed it.
It's great too because it's if you've never read the books, which my original
I know how
exposure
to
to
read.
The Witcher was The Witcher 3, the video game. So I
Right,
had
that's
seen that.
most of people's.
I seen that they had two. I think it was a PlayStation exclusive, and then
Witcher 3, Tokyo Witcher.
Tokyo Drift Witchers. I think Witcher 3
be
was
amazing.
cross-platform, so it was available for like PC, PlayStation, and
Gotcha.
Xbox. So it got a wider audience.
Oh,
But it was all
okay.
based off of a book series.
Right.
But then, yeah, the movie takes place.
Or the show.
The show, sorry,
in
the show,
Tokyo.
It's in Tokyo, oddly enough. But it takes
And
place
this-
at the beginning of, I think, the first series of the books, because there are characters in the show that are much more advanced in the video game part 3. So you're getting their prequel type information. But
yeah.
the thing that's also clever about this show is they use like flashback and storytelling, time travel. But the way that they did the production design, it's one of those things where you start to look for, and it's not something obvious like scars. It's not like he gets a scar and when it's gone he's in the past, and when it's present he's in the future. There's so much.
When he has diarrhea,
It's
you know
mad diarrhea.
it's this year.
But
You know it's
they
the
do
past.
they do things with his equipment and the people around him and some of that stuff, which is it's super subtle and you don't notice it until you realize they're bouncing back and forth in time, and then it's
Yeah.
like, oh man, and then you start looking for it and it's super good.
Yeah, people got cranky, but I didn't mind that at all, the time jumping.
No, I thought it was a little just jarring the first time it happened because
Yeah,
because
right.
I can't remember exactly the specifics of it, but it was so out of place that it was like, wait, like did it skip? Like, did you check in the buffer to make sure you didn't jump ahead 5 minutes? Because it was the person that they're talking to, and then the 5 minutes later the person they're talking to is that person's like grandson. And you're like, but you're both the same age. How did you're the same? Like it's like a bra, like a get. It's just like a little.
Is he like immortal?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he blonde?
I mean, they can be killed. They're like
He's platinum, bro.
They're like they're like the elves in Lord of the Rings. So they just have extremely long life, but they're still
see.
they can still be killed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the great thing about the show is you don't need all the backstory. You just need to know that witchers are a special thing, and then they do a great job of just running you right through all the lore in a non obtrusive way.
Yeah, that's helpful.
It does carry some of the standard fantasy stuff with like weird names and places and lineage and stuff like that, which is a turnoff for some people. They don't want to learn a family tree to watch a movie or a show. But they do a good job of not making that so much of an issue.
Well, it's So to speak to that in a positive way, it was a show I watched. I maybe got to the third episode, and it wasn't the case of me going, "Oh God, you don't want to deal with this." It made me go, "Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna go and read like Wikipedia. I'm just gonna take a hot minute, and I'm gonna familiarize myself with the houses, the royalty, the factions, the sorcering, all these different kind of guilds." And then I came back to it and it was fine. I went, okay, it's cool. So there's definitely, you have to step in, because that's, I think, probably what fans would like about it is that it just drops you in and you go, and there's no time, and they're just like, hey, and this is a thing and that's a thing, and deal with it. But in a good way. But again, it's nothing that's too over the top.
Right. Yeah. They don't bend physics or like mess with natural laws necessarily. Like it's not like everyone has a computer port and they just plug into modems everywhere they want. It's nothing super weird like that, which is a really bad example for a medieval fantasy movie. But
Yeah, you lost me on the analogy, but
yeah, I got you. But but like I said, they've got he gets attacked by a satyr that talks, and it's like, okay,
what's a satyr?
right? You just a thing. It's just a mythical beast. Like you don't.
No, really, what is it?
It's
the dudes that have the half bottoms.
the goat bottoms.
Like goat bottom.
A what kind of bottom?
Jinx,
Like
goat bottoms.
Mr. Tumbless from
Gotcha.
the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
I see.
Who's that annoying dude from Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe?
It's
God, I wanted that
Professor
guy
X.
to get murdered.
This is James McAvoy. Why are you so mad at him?
It is him.
Yeah,
I don't hate him, but
yeah.
man, I want that character to get strangled.
Real angry at him. Well, he plays a pan flute.
I
and
mean,
wears no
look, I
shirt.
was going to pleasure myself when it happened, but I'm not saying bad strangled. I'm
Pause
saying
it. Don't
consensual
pause it.
strangled.
What else?
Nick's like, I'm jumping off of
Yeah.
this.
So, anyways, so why are they called satyrs? I thought they were called minotaurs.
No,
That's-
no. This is like Dionysus. It's like the human tops, and then it's bipedal legs,
And
but
he
they have
just has-
hooves.
he
They
has
have
skull
furry
legs,
legs and
yeah.
hooves.
He's like the Bronco outside of DIA, but a man on top.
That's correct.
No, that's a
Right?
centaur.
Yeah, no. So
You're thinking of a centaur.
a centaur
I'm
is an
looking up
insect.
this-
It has 6
So a
limbs.
satyr doesn't have 4 legs.
What's he
has
called? A
2 legs.
Dionysus?
No.
Dionysus is a satyr, isn't he?
Yes.
Satyr. Is it spelled all
He-
goofy?
he's
It's
the
like-
it's-
drunken.
It's the human
Dude.
body from belly button up,
Satyr.
and goat body from belly button down.
Satyr.
Yep.
SAT.
Satyr. I'm showing my myth cred right now.
Oh yeah, but he doesn't have like. I don't know.
A corkscrew
Where
penis.
do you stick your?
So why? So his legs
Oh, your
are
wheels.
normal.
Okay,
he
hold
doesn't
on.
have a horse bottom.
No.
He's
No.
got a normal man.
No,
bottom,
that's a
but he's got
centaur.
horse legs.
Centaurs are a horse
Gotcha.
bottom.
Well, why would
No,
you
he's
have
not
that
even
many-
really. Yeah, you can.
His legs go
okay, if you want to be
backwards.
stuck on horse legs, I would steer away from horse legs.
They go
Specifically,
backwards like
'cause
a
that's
horse or
putting
like
you
a dog.
Like a goat.
Here, look up centaur.
No, that's what a satyr is.
No, they're
No.
different. They're totally different.
And then we're
What-
gonna look up a
what is
minotaur
that?
after that. Don't worry,
I
we're
don't know,
gonna
it's a-
go
it's
through
a
all
white
of them.
blown out screen.
What is that?
That's a satyr. Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
but look at his
that's what I
legs.
said.
They're like horse legs.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, sure. It's a cloven hoof, so it's more like a goat.
I feel like I'm in a different universe right now. This is a
Did we
horse,
just blow
right?
your mind? No, that's
Yeah.
Okay, look up horse.
How
We'll
do you
give you a
spell it?
minute.
Horse.
So the horses have human top, right?
Well, I mean, look at his legs. So that's a minotaur,
that's a centaur.
centaur, and he's
That's a
got
centaur.
horse legs.
Yes.
He's got horse legs.
That is a satyr, and he's got very similar legs.
Wait,
But he's
hold
got a
on.
cloven
What's
hoof.
happening on top with this dude?
So we're saying satyrs are
Goats.
goats.
Yes.
I can
Yeah.
go with that. All right, I can feel.
And
that.
I think that's like
fine.
specifically is what they're saying. It's not
That's
just like
fine.
us
I
drawing
agree
this
with you guys
conclusion.
now. It's fine.
Oh, thank God.
I mean, look, in this day and age, don't call them satyr. They want to be called
Cloven hoof people.
cloven folk.
Right, cloven folk.
Okay, and what was Medusa one of those, or was she just a lady?
No, she's a gorgon.
And Gorgons, do they have horse legs?
No.
She's like she's snake
Snake hair.
legs. She's got no legs. She's got snake tail.
She got legs.
It depends.
Oh,
I
it
guess
depends
true.
on the story. Yeah, gotcha.
It depends who's drawing it, right? And a gorgon itself is not like it's specific, right? I feel like it's a little more open to just like this
yeah,
monstrous.
Gorgon is like a species. Medusa
Yeah.
was a specific
Yeah.
member of that
Gotcha.
species.
So
tell you,
Athena
you-
turned her in because what was one of the gods that Athena was into, like this beautiful woman drew his eye, and just because she was cute and drew this guy's eye, Athena was like, screw you, you're a gorgon, like
yeah,
totally
yeah, something
cursed
like
her.
that. Yeah.
And it was like the most crazy thing. And you're like, oh, I thought Athena was wise and cool, but she's crazy.
Yeah, they're all
When did you hear this story? Was it in school?
I was with Athena, and we were
in
drinking.
the 90s.
And yeah, and Dionysus was there. I mean, he was the one that like got her relaxed.
We all
and then
had horse
she
legs.
opened up.
It's just too much.
I like this. I like this side quest we just went on.
Yeah. If you haven't turned off already, thanks for sticking around. I'm
And
gonna
so
take a look at my
Minotaur,
queue
you
as
remember
well.
Minotaur, right? I
Yeah.
feel like
Well,
we got to
now I will.
complete these
All I remember
critters.
is James McAvoy and how much you hate him.
No,
for
I'm
no
talking about
reason.
Minotaurs now.
watched.
It's the bull top, human bottom.
uh,
And then there's the Motar, which is
Ozark.
motorcycle bottom, human top. from the Geico or whatever commercial.
Right.
I think the last two I have from Netflix are Lost in Space and Ozark.
Oh, okay.
I should watch Ozark. I started watching Lost in Space way back, and it's hard for me to commit to an hour-long show, is my problem.
It's a tough one.
Like,
it's
an
because
actual hour.
My problem with Lost in Space is they present you with life and death peril every single episode. Yet you can tell that there are 20 episodes in a season. So
Right,
it's like,
and you're like, oh boy, we got to break this up.
You're not all gonna die. We know this,
you know they get out of it, but they do, and it's also funny too that I think the writers may have cheated off of their classmates in science, because a lot of the science is really bad, or it's to the
like me doing science.
It's to the point of like kind of reading how something works and then just running with an idea, or having a completely viable present solution and then choosing the hardest way to do it. Like if you fall down a hole and you have a rope, the solution is to fill the hole with liquid hot magma, not use the rope. Like,
and
no,
float
man,
up.
use the rope. You don't need to fill it with magma. That doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like that sometimes.
Do they use magma?
No, but it was. I mean, it was like
work?
they had a hole and they had a rope to climb out, but their solution was to let the floodwaters, allow them to float up. But it's like, dude, you had a rope, right? It's literally right there. Like, just climb out. Like, it's like, come on, man. And that's the peril.
Maybe they failed Jim.
Like maybe they can't swim. Like no, they use the rope to get down. Just use the rope. It's stuff like that where you're like, there's a peril here, but like not really.
Yeah.
I don't know why it doesn't appeal to me at all. I've not had any interest in watching.
Space?
Yeah.
Is it
Well,
fantasy?
that's tough too.
Do you like real world? Because I think that's the biggest question. Like for me, I avoid like gangster crime movies, stuff like that. I have zero interest.
I love
Even
it.
though it's probably better and is whatever. I go, that's this world. I live in this world. I don't need this shit.
Gotcha.
I want to go to shoot me with some lasers. Even though most of those things I go, well, this is boring because it's not grounded. So I catch
Which is
myself
more
in the
real.
middle
Yeah.
going, oh boy. But
See, earthy,
that's what I
gritty drama, like not Nightcrawler. That kind of stuff is what I love
Like
to watch when
potentially
it comes to
true
narrative
life.
stuff. Yeah, but that's why I gravitate so hard to documentaries. I just love real stories, but told in a cinematic way. That's kind of what lights me up. But although if you want to go sci-fi, The Mandalorian, man, just well done. Well done, Mr. Favreau and Disney. I'll give them credit for that. It's amazing.
And Dave Filoni.
That show, it was so. It's like, aside from being all the fan service you could ever want, and you know that they were sitting in a room saying, we're going to bring back arguably Baby Yoda, but we cannot talk about it. Like, no merchandise. Like, that is a hard decision to make. And then to have that be essentially like one of your launch titles, guaranteed Disney so much money after launch, because the minute the memes started coming out, I personally know of people that were like, I'm not giving Disney money, and then we were talking about Mandalorian all day long.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the perfect thing about it, was that they didn't do like what they did like with Porgs or with any other movie where they're like, oh, this is that cute thing, here's Jar Jar Binks, you're gonna love it, without letting people love it. They're just saying, hey, we're gonna tell you what you're gonna love, and we're hedging bets on it, and we made a bazillion toys, and so I like that they were way behind the curve on it, and even to a point, maybe, who knows, they might be full of crap when they say it, but going, oh, we didn't think anything of it.
Yeah, that's
you probably
BS. There's
did.
no way.
What I like though
BS,
too
but-
is that if they were hedging their bets a little bit, let's say either that, it could be that where what's funny is that it's a massive hit. All anyone wants in life is to have a Baby Yoda, and they're like, he'll be out in May, and you're like, I have to wait until May to get a toy
I
of
mean,
Baby
they
Yoda.
missed Christmas.
Yeah,
They could have had a Tickle Me Baby Yoda.
So I don't know
you
if that was intentional. Were they like, well, let's just see if it goes anywhere because they weren't sure, or if they were just like, we are going to make so much money because we're going to make everybody wait forever. I know it doesn't take that long to get toys developed. So
No,
I'm sure.
I really do think that's where there is some truth of them going. They really kind of were downplaying it, and they weren't thinking of Baby Yoda as merchandising. They were thinking of him as a character. I think genuinely, because it's Disney. Like, they would have had a bazillion toys ready come Christmas. They would have been ready for that launch.
Yeah.
And the fact that they weren't kind of tells me I think they were kind of going, you know what? And two, that was the climate. That when that show was being made, they're going, this fan base is incredibly split. It's incredibly divisive. There's a lot of toxicity. Oh boy.
Yeah.
We got to tread lightly.
Because even though the new Star Wars films were, by large hits, they weren't necessarily loved by the older fan base, anyways. By dorks like
we
us.
got to talk about the new one. Have we talked about the?
And you know what? I haven't even seen it yet, but feel free to talk about it because that's where I was at with
it's
it. Honestly,
streaming
after
on
Han Solo
Amazon
dies,
Prime, I
I'm
think.
done. Like, I'm just like,
Yeah, they did just drop it, probably because of the virus.
Yeah.
They made it digital early. So
yeah, well done Disney on that one. Like letting
Frozen 2 as well.
out early. Like give the moms and dads of the world a break, right?
right.
But I haven't seen it, but by all means, what were your perceptions of the final Star Wars film?
I thought it was a complete mess, but I kind of loved it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the experience, and I was walking into it going, I don't know if I texted you guys, but I was just like, I felt like I was having to go to like, it's like the funeral of Star Wars. I was just like, all right, this is, I got dredged myself in, and I was like, I was bummed. I like ate a steak beforehand. I was just like, all right, Eric,
I ate a steak.
let's do it. And
The
then I
final
was
meal.
like, oh, I enjoyed this. But the whole time I was going, this makes no sense, and it's a complete shit show. I love it. Who cares? Burn it down.
Yeah, it was.
Like, here we are.
It
Just
definitely was like
burn
like an idea blender, where they. But I mean, that's hard to do though, because the minute Episode 8, the credits started rolling, theory, fan site, blog site, like the fan base basically removed any possible original concept whatsoever because somebody has said it. So
Right.
I think what they did
I see,
was
yeah.
right. They couldn't surprise
Somebody said
us.
it out there in the internet.
Yeah.
It's out there. Yeah, for sure.
Some site
right.
was going to be right. Like some site, I knew
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so that,
Yeah.
so I think knowing that, I think they did a great job of committing to like a story, having it kind of play in. Can we talk about it? I guess whatever spoilers.
Yes, I want to know what happens. I don't care.
Yeah, at this
anymore.
point, Matt.
Yeah,
I
all
think
right.
you really
Okay,
care.
cool.
It's surprising I have no idea, isn't it? Like,
So-
I
Really?
have no idea.
What
yeah.
do you know? Wait, hold on. I
let's
do
do
genuinely
this.
want to
Yeah.
know
What do
from
you-
just even ads what you.
So when the movie starts,
Predict
it
what
picks
happens.
up where Episode 8 left off.
That's how far you.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some ridiculous ship that looks a little bit like something from the original movies, and then Kylo Ren's real angry, and then they might have a good time. I don't know. It didn't matter. I don't
Wow.
care.
Do you
Yeah.
think that
I
they
know
bring
nothing. I
back a
literally know
certain
nothing.
villain? Because this is really.
I
the
know that
biggie.
there's a flashback with Han Solo, which is not in the. Is there or not?
It's not a flashback, but Han
He pops
Solo's
up.
there.
It's not a
Yeah.
flashback. Yeah.
Oh, he's there. How did he come back?
Like a force dream,
Oh, it's a dream.
or like a,
It's like a wet
vision.
dream. Forceful wet dream.
A forceful dream.
A wet force dream.
Wait, okay, so let me guess. There's a bad guy. Like, oh, the Emperor comes back. I know that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
How did
what-
he
that's
not
what I was-
die?
Oh, who knows? It's hilarious.
Well, they
They're like, he's a clone.
No.
I don't.
Really?
I didn't pick the clone part out. The part I picked out from that was, he falls down the random giant hole in the Death Star. Or no, it's
Yeah.
it's
Gets
on the
shafted,
planet,
bro.
right? He gets shafted on the planet.
Yeah.
And the
then-
Death Star 2.
Is it?
Are we talking about?
He's on.
Wait, okay. What are you talking about?
No, he was on the Death Star
He's
when
on
he
the
got
Death
shafted.
Star. Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Death Star
I
2.
was getting my timeline mixed up.
Falls down
Luke-
the shaft.
Luke surrenders to Vader on the planet, and then gets shuttled up to the Death Star where they watch
Yes.
the battle. Right. So then he
They're
gets
in the Emperor's little throne.
yeah. So he gets
tower.
shafted in the Death Star, and then I guess what they didn't explain it. They just basically have
Oh,
him.
good.
They have him hooked up to a bunch of like
Guess they didn't
essentially
know
like
why.
dark side life support.
It's like
who did?
Hellraiser. They take the Emperor and they like push him in the Hellraiser direction, where he's like being held up by in the back by like these like syringes and crap.
Yeah.
Well, who found him? How did he become
The Sith? That's the thing. Like, there's apparently a hidden planet. There's a hidden planet that is like the hidden Sith planet. So the Jedi get a temple on a small island. These guys get a whole fucking planet.
Exeter or something.
That is hidden, and the only way to find it is using one of two Sith holocrons, two in the universe. One of them happened to be on the Death Star. Yeah, Wayfinders.
Yeah.
what's a holocron?
It's just a
it's like information.
Yeah, it's like
gotcha.
a spacey.
It's a
compass.
MacGuffin.
Okay.
This is like MacGuffin the movie kind of too. Yeah. It's
Right. Yeah.
So
it's get this MacGuffin so you can find these other two MacGuffins so you can go get the ultimate MacGuffin.
Right.
So they
I get it now.
So there's apparently a planet that has been around for millennia of just like the Sith, and they recover, save, etc., bring him in. But he's leading this, and he develops. God, there must have been thousands of these like ultra destroyers.
So he gets his own economy going on this middle of nowhere. Like you have to go through a briar patch to get to this weird planet that's like, Sith origin planet. Who knows what angle they're going with? Doesn't really matter. It's a cool looking planet, but there's like a vat full of Snoke clones.
Yep.
So that's their way of going. Who was Snoke? He's some clones.
He didn't
Who
matter.
knows? Fuck
Yeah,
it.
he was a puppet.
Nobody cares.
Come on.
Yeah, for real.
And he just has this mega workforce that's been building
For
old
what, 20
school
years?
Star Destroyers. Yeah, for however long it's been, 30 years.
Yeah, so in 30 years they knocked out like 500 ultra destroyers.
Okay.
Yeah,
what
and then
reason?
there's all these
And then they buried
dudes,
them underground
Sith
for some reason.
worshippers.
Are they? Because does he want to go and take over the world again? Is that the
Yes.
plan?
He's gonna take over the galaxy.
Right, so
Yeah,
the opening credits roll, and essentially the message is that a voice has risen from the past, and Kylo Ren is seeking out the Emperor because he feels that he is a threat to his new power as leader of the New Order.
Leader. Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
So he,
it says Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, and then it says, "Oops, we forgot to make a plan."
JK.
It was pretty much what the scroll is.
Yeah.
And then it's, hey, wacky shit, just go with it.
Okay,
Don't ask
so
questions,
we got
just
the
enjoy.
Emperor.
yeah,
We got the Emperor showing up. But so what is Rey? Who is she? Like what's the point
Who
of
do
her?
you think?
Oh,
She is.
yeah!
I think that she is
Wrong.
Cinderella. No, I don't know. And it doesn't really matter, I
what?
guess.
Oh, so I'll ask you two questions. What would be the most bonkers answer to who is she?
Bonkers answer is she is Han Solo and Leia's daughter that somehow got neglected and put into a planet.
So like
all on her own.
like the twin scenario, and they split them up again.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's the
she's
most
sister
bonkers
of
answer.
Kylo.
So what is the most unfan favorite answer to who is Rey?
Oh, I don't know. I guess maybe she's just a random waitress. I don't know.
So
She's Sarah Connor.
so Rey.
Is she related to Luke?
Do you want to tell him, Eric?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Rey is
Okay,
short
yeah, she's a...
for Rey Palpatine.
The granddaughter! It's her grampy.
So in all that time that
Palpatine
Palpatine
is her
was being
grampy.
the Emperor, he had time to get busy and have kids, have those kids grow
because-
up, and marry other people, and then they had time to have a daughter. And the whole thing with Rey getting dumped on the planet is the son of the Emperor wanted to save his daughter from the Emperor himself, so he took her to a planet.
Yeah,
and just,
Frankie.
sold her
Frankie
off.
was not into the Sith. Yeah. Look, Frankie, I don't think you should take over the family business.
Did they go
And,
into
okay,
who
so
her
here's the
mom
best thing.
was, or
What's that?
No, they show the parents for just a split, like a real quick second. They're non, aside from existing,
They're very
they have
Uncle
nothing
Owen,
to do with
Aunt
anything.
Beru kind of.
Yeah. But the best thing is that, so the Emperor's plan is like, bring her to me. I want her to carry on the Sith legacy. I will give her my power and my Sith force. And then, so she's there, and he's trying to turn her. So it's very like Return of the Jedi, right? And then Kylo shows up, that ding dong, and then it's like it's the two of them, and he's like, oh, there's all this power in front of me. I'm gonna take your power. And he goes from going take over to I'm gonna suck your power because I'm a diva and I want to be back in charge.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful.
That's
it's so
insane.
Wonderful.
What is wrong with them? Why can't characters just be? Why does it have to be all this Twainian, everybody's related nonsense? Why can't it just be a story about?
Well,
people?
they were kind of just stuck. And so I'm happy that they just went the dumbest route.
It's
and
like they just put
down.
all the options into a hat, reached in, and they said, let's do this. And maybe they're just like, well, at least we got the Mandalorian or something. I don't know. It's because, see, that's what made Rogue One such a great movie. Rogue One's a great movie because you've got tie-ins, and yes, they had just like little bits in here, but it was an independent story that could stand on its own with really interesting characters that didn't have to have an explanation. Kind of like Indiana Jones. I mean, Indiana Jones is, the first 3 films, he's just a guy. You don't really know anything about him, but you love him to death. Why can't we just do that with a movie? Why does she have to be Rey Palpatine? And that's the worst name.
Raymond Palpatine.
Yeah, surprise!
Everybody
surprise.
loves
Second
Raymond
surprise.
Palpatine.
So they do some other stuff too. Like
Unreal.
They handle the passing of Carrie Fisher. When they go when they go to get
it's tough. They're stuck with that.
They're trying to find this holocron thing to discover Exeter. I should probably look that up. I think that's not. I don't know if that's necessarily the name of it. But they
Does it have horse legs?
They go to the wreckage of the Death Star because of course Palpatine had one like in his little like hobby closet. There's only 2 in the universe, and one of them's in his little like personal junk drawer. But when they go there, Rey and Kylo fight because of course they do. She kills him. Rey kills Kylo Ren.
How early on?
This is about more than halfway through.
Nice.
They fight and she kills him. But this is the tie-in with Carrie Fisher. She feels it because they explain that Leia was actually the stronger Jedi, stronger than Luke, and she had been training Rey, and so she uses some sort of force bonding like thing where she basically brings Kylo Ren back to life by transferring all of her life energy into Kylo Ren from galaxies away, like across space and time.
Yeah.
She brings it back to life, and they introduce this concept of the good Jedi, or Jedi can manipulate life and bring life back from death. They do this little like thing where Rey heals a snake that's underground that's hurt or something, and so she heals it. Yeah.
That's the setup to show that she has this power now.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the thing that Jedi can do. Don't ask why it wasn't used before. Just deal with
ever.
it here.
Don't ask why it was ever used before.
Yeah.
Just now. She heals him, but like basically Leia ties her life force in with Kylo Ren, and then from that moment on, that's when Kylo Ren sees Han Solo, and they basically redo that scene in Force Awakens where he says, I don't know if I have the strength, blah, blah, blah. And then this time he does chuck his lightsaber into the ocean. And then he's like, Kylo Ren is dead. I'm now Ben Solo. So then he's like that converted, I'm a good guy now. And so then when Rey goes to the planet, he shows up then in behind. There's also some setup that you don't know about that is new to the Force now too, where in episode 8 where they showed them like having conversations with each other,
gasoline
gas and fire, where they had like those mutual conversations using the Force. So now they get into a couple of fights in some places, and there's actually a matter transfer. So like she'll break something in her world, and it'll be on the ground next to him on a Star Destroyer. or like they go to.
They took that concept and like turned it up to 11.
Yeah,
and
they
they're
they
like, let's make it
they
rock
stepped
and
on
roll,
the gas.
bro.
So like the big like super cool thing at the end is,
Which is fun, actually.
yeah, it's a pretty dope thing. So she's facing off with Palpatine, and he says, "Surrender your lightsaber." So she like puts it behind her head because she's force connected with Kylo Ren, who's now facing off with the Knights of Ren, unarmed, and she basically like matter transfers her lightsaber to him, and he uses it to fight the Knights of Ren, and then she pulls out Leia's saber to fight Palpatine.
That's kind of cool.
There were some cool things, but there are definitely some like an idea blender that they just like.
Yeah.
we got this stuff we want to do, but God, how do we do it?
Just throw it out there. Oof, that
Right,
sounds
they
brutal.
just threw everything at the wall. But you also get Ray, Flip, and Stevie, whatever their names are, Finn and Ray. They actually hang out, all the three of them. And so you're like, oh, this trio that they have been publicizing and been putting on, magazine covers, they actually hang out for once in the movie. So, and that was enjoyable.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That sounds awful. I don't want to.
I mean, go into it with low expectations, and maybe you might enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I'll watch it eventually. It'll happen.
Yeah, pretend
Well,
it was shot in the 70s with the original, where it's just like a bonkers edit and just this like far out storytelling that they did do a good job of showing you something and then using it again later. So it's not like all of a sudden something just happens and you're like, wait, this is a thing now? Which I think is what kind of turned everyone off on 8 a little bit, was the Snoke using the Force bound or whatever to allow them to communicate across galaxies and have like conversations. And people are just like, wait, hold on. That's a thing? What? Because then...
Yeah. Well, see, I didn't mind that so much, like where Rey and Kylo were talking, because it reminded me of that moment in Empire where Luke is talking to Leia to come back to turn around and get him on.
He's doing
Cloud
like
City.
a
That
force
was,
pull,
that
like
split screen sort of thing. It was cool. I really liked that. It was a nice little callback. But yeah, there were. I don't know. I mean, I'll take a look at it. But see, it always brings me back to the Mandalorian, because the Mandalorian created the world without having to do anything crazy with it. There are flashbacks. They can do things. They can take liberties that other Star Wars movies couldn't necessarily.
Right.
But it gave us fully independent characters. My only question with Mandalorian is it takes place after Return of the Jedi, right?
Yep.
Which is not that far outside of what we know as the prequels or whatever. And there's a line about referring to the Jedi as some sort of, ancient race or something like that died out a long time ago. That always bugged me for some reason, because I feel like it's almost
a disconnect.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's because I guess you and I, like, we wouldn't necessarily talk about the hippies, that was in the 60s. You might have to explain to a kid what a hippie was.
But it wouldn't be myth yet.
Yeah, and being that they were so-called the guardians, the Knights of the Republic, the Guardians of the Galaxy, they were such an important part of history. It just is weird that somebody like the Mandalorian's age wouldn't have any frame of reference for what a Jedi is or was.
And I think where maybe the prequels should have done a better job of saying, who actually sees Jedi in action? Hardly anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
This really is, they keep themselves pretty low-key. They only get involved where they have to, and they only turn on their lightsabers when they absolutely have to. So, if I think if the prequels was sold the idea that it was rare, but then the Clone Wars happened, and so you're like, it's hard to put the two together.
Yeah.
Exactly. To say, oh, these Jedi, these crazy skilled, superpowered dudes are leading clones, and now we forgot about them, or you don't believe them. Even though, of course, the Emperor will want to try and bury their history. I get that. But yeah. So the Mandalorian is specifically in his youth. It's talking about the Clone Wars specifically. Right. You see droids attack, and they're going to do that in the Clone Wars show. So there's going to be a crossover there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's smart. So the timing is always interesting with the years or time that is required to pass for certain things to become like a myth. But that's never part of the rock solid mythology of it.
But see,
it's
Yeah,
allowed to be a
I've
little
written a
flexible
little-
for me.
Sure.
little thing.
Again, it's
for-
fantasy, so you go, whatever.
And it's like I want to do kind of just a fan film thing just for fun this summer, and it kind of takes place in that Mandalorian-ish time. But one of the characters, was in the Clone Wars and did kill Jedi, and that just feels like it makes sense for that world that people still know what the Jedi were and stuff. And so I don't know, this is completely irrelevant to life right now, but it just bugged me.
Well, no, I mean that's fair though,
No,
because
it
you think
is-
about like you
it's-
talk to your grandparents, like there's still World War II veterans that you can sit down and talk to. There's still people
Right.
that were aware of the Great
Yeah.
Depression, and that's about the same amount of time. Like,
Yeah, it's
so it's
Well, this is
Oh,
only
way
20
less.
years, though.
It's
If
only
we're
20
talking
years,
A New
yeah.
Hope.
yeah. Well, no,
Yeah.
it's
It's from baby Luke to Luke at 19.
right.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
19 or 20. Yeah.
I mean, the only other potential argument for that is literal distance. I mean, we're talking about like galaxies that they're so big they even have a thing called the outer rim. Like that's how big it is. So that
Yeah.
maybe the literal distance is enough to like fog up the belief that,
yeah.
and maybe some people just like had force sensitivity, but they would be looked at like, oh, they're just a really good athlete. That's a really bad example, but you know what I mean? Where like
Right.
if
Yeah.
they didn't go,
yeah,
didn't go into
if
the
they're not in the
training of it,
Republic and don't get chosen,
right?
then yeah.
So like they just had it, but it was never something that people looked at and said like, oh, that's definitely you could be a Jedi if you wanted to. That's maybe it's not a thing.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe.
how I rationalize it.
Yeah, I guess. But I guess at the same time, that would beg the question of like, or at least bring into question the entire like first Star Wars movie, that Luke and nobody really knew anything about Jedi or the Force or anything like that, and wasn't that far out removed from that entire time period. But just splitting hairs at that point. So
Yeah. Well, then we've talked about this in the past too. That something that the Rise of Skywalker talks about, that whole concept of like balance to the Force. Like when you see the Sith temple, it's definitely not an equal balance between light and dark. Like there's literally stands of tens of thousands of Sith where you're like, if they're
like
all
a
sensitive to the dark side,
Soccer stadium.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's like an arena. Yeah. Which
They're going,
But-
instead of ole, 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 they're going, oh. No, they don't do that.
they
They're
might as
Chiefs
well
fans.
have been doing it.
But see, that's the problem with basically all large movies like this now. Everything has to be the spectacle, and so we
Right.
can't create a realistic feeling. Maybe that's why Star Wars was so amazing to us. It was enough of a spectacle, but it wasn't so massive that we that it kind of got out of touch. It's funny because I watch movies now through the lens of 4 and 5-year-olds because there's many of them in my life now, and so it's like seeing them. They don't know any better, so to them, the new Star Wars movie is Star Wars as much to them as A New Hope.
Right.
Right.
Whereas for
And
us,
if anything, A New Hope would probably seem like an ancient, boring movie
yeah, pretty
for
much.
a little kid today that's been watching Pixar or whatever, used to a certain pace, a certain level of
Yeah,
amazingness. Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, but so
Well, and-
thank you for telling me about it. I don't need to watch it now.
Yeah, you're fine.
And again, for any listeners who are still with us,
If
thank
it's
you.
like a Saturday, like not currently, but I would call it like, yeah, if it's a Saturday and you've got something going on, and you could have a background TV on, it's not a bad Saturday movie.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah, if you want to drink and pop some popcorn, screw it, do it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
It's not like suffering through a Transformers movie. Although I haven't seen Bumblebee, I would include that one in that.
Let's not talk bad about Bumblebee. We haven't seen it.
Oh no, I'm not roping it in with the Michael Bay.
You
directed.
can skip it.
Yeah.
Did you
Okay,
watch it?
I did see it. Yeah.
I had someone, a friend, give a very positive. He's like, "This is," I can't remember what he called it, but he was enjoying the hell out of it, and he didn't think he would. But
That's good.
so there we are, split.
No, it's
Did you like the Michael Bay Transformer movies?
the first couple were okay. They kind of got off the rails at the end. My issue with Bumblebee, again, it's a timeline thing. It's a continuity thing. They in the later
It's a prequel.
Transformer movies, they talk about how like they've always been here, and they show Bumblebee as like a Jeep during World War One. You know, it's transformed as a Jeep and stuff like that. And then in this movie, it's like he's only been here since the 80s. It's so out of continuity.
They're resetting.
Yeah,
right.
It's they.
Well, yeah.
The timeline. It's like in comic books when you you think you're reading like one universe of comics, and then you go grab the other one that's like you think you're reading the X-Men, and then you go grab an Uncanny X-Men, and you're like, oh, this is definitely the same, and it's definitely not. That's what Bumblebee felt like, is like this was an alternate Transformers universe that has its own timeline, and they're trying to do something like that, because it definitely does not sync up with the Michael Bay ones at all.
Yeah.
Other than
Which is
character.
okay.
But I feel like that's what I would like about it.
No, that's
exactly.
fair.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, get me away from the
If you want to
cocaine
create
addled
the separation, then it's a pretty good movie. If you want to basically like
Maniac.
reboot your Transformers experience, it's a good movie for that. But if you're trying to work it in, it doesn't. It doesn't work.
Sure. Right. I get that.
Yeah, makes sense.
But
You
so,
got the touch.
apropos.
You got the power.
Yeah. I tried watching the Pandemic series on Netflix, apropos to a certain current situation. It was not entertaining at all. Like, not even close.
really, that one.
So-
I'll tell you what, pandemics seem like they should be a real.
Yeah, it seems like it should be a winner, but it was
tinkered
real
with that
bad.
one. We watched Outbreak the other day, which is
It's
still
25 years
The
old.
Dustin Hoffman movie?
Dustin Hoffman,
Oh,
Rene
nice.
Russo
Rene
again.
Russo's in that as well.
But it's got
yeah.
man,
Cuba Gooding
Kevin Spacey, Cuba Gooding Jr., Morgan Freeman, Donald Sutherland.
Yeah,
It's got-
No, that was that era where everybody was starting to do the big movies and stuff. You know, the Armageddon and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It was
Congo.
right in the circle. Yeah, Kong. About the dog
That's around
toys.
that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't seen it, but I hear it's so. The only episode I watched of Pandemic, the lady who's like the head of, or who's kind of like the main focus of the first episode, that's what got her inspired to be a part of CDC or whatever she's a part of. I don't even know, but was the movie Pandemic. And I thought I see people who are like, oh, I watched Top Gun, I became a fighter pilot. Not a lot of people say I watched Outbreak and then I wanted to treat pandemics, but movies are powerful.
Wait, is
Moral of the
Pandemic a
story.
series or a
Yeah, it's a series.
It's a
I think it's a
documentary
series.
or real?
No, it's real. It's about people preparing for a
okay.
pandemic.
I thought
and
it
then
was.
I think
thought
it
it was like
follows
Chernobyl.
other.
Like,
No, and then it follows outbreaks in other countries and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I didn't get that far. It was freaking boring. But certainly don't want to watch it now. So hashtag not recommended. I mean, you guys could recommend it if you want.
It's
but
a hard,
I certainly don't.
right.
Yeah, hard pass on that one. I'm gonna look and see what else I've been watching.
Oh, I've got one that's a little, well, not old, but it's one that the last year. The Boys. You guys watch that on Amazon? That's like the
No,
superheroes.
not yet.
If
That's on my
superheroes
list.
were very
that's on my
gray
list.
area, kind of could be jerks, could be whatever. And yeah, Carl Urban. It was very enjoyable
Yeah,
and pretty quick to pound through.
the trailer before it came out, the trailer was phenomenal. I loved it.
Yeah.
It was really
And
good.
who is? Oh, it's Dennis Quaid's kid. He's like one of the main characters.
Oh,
He's like the
awesome.
Joe Schmo that gets sucked into the world.
Oh, nice.
He's good. He's a little bit kind of like one note, but he's good.
Yeah.
Right on.
Did I ever tell you that my Dennis Quaid story?
No.
I
Did he
haven't?
shrink down and go inside of
He
you?
went inside me. Yeah. He got me real nervous.
Hey, that's a really good movie, by the way.
It is. It's a great movie.
Inner
If
Space.
you want to look
Yeah.
up like a classic
Martin Short and Dennis
80s
Quaid.
nonsense movie, Inner Space is top
Yeah.
notch.
Meg
Is
Ryan.
Martin Short the one he's
Yeah,
in? Who's
Martin
Who's
Short.
he?
Yeah,
in?
Martin Short.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it Meg Ryan? Is she the
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's Meg Ryan.
It's wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful film. My goodness, she was a huge star. how big of a movie star she was in that era. It was like insane.
Yeah.
Like the biggest
Just
ever.
a lovely, clean girl next door, babe.
Yeah, for sure. So I was working at a restaurant in Santa Monica, and I was a bartender, and the service well, where you give the drinks to the servers to come and take to the tables, was kind of facing a couple of tables that were sitting here. And at that table was Burt Bacharach, the very, very famous,
Wow.
singer-songwriter, and his wife. And so they're sitting and they're having dinner, and I mean, he's like $1 billion, and she's not as old as him, but she's old. And so they're kind of like, doing their thing. And Dennis Quaid is having dinner in the corner with, his people. And he comes in, and the restroom is right around the corner from this table. And he goes to the restroom, comes out, and he's standing there by the service well waiting for his wife to come out of the restroom. And Burt Bacharach's wife looks up at Dennis Quaid and goes, "Excuse me, does anyone tell you look a lot like Dennis Quaid?" And Dennis Quaid goes, "Yeah, I get that a lot." And I was like, that's so Hollywood that one of the most famous musicians in the world's wife is telling one of the most famous actors in the world that he looks like the actor he really is, and none of them recognize each other at all.
And none of them want it to go past just that quick thing, probably.
Right, because he wasn't
like
going to
they
look
just
over
want-
and notice, oh, that guy wrote really amazing songs. And yeah, he was very kind, very nice to her, but that's as far as it went.
That's amazing.
But what I think is funny is that Burt Bacharach's wife must have been around famous people at some point in her life and would have maybe... I've never in my life said, even to someone I thought was famous, you look like XYZ famous person. Like, I've never done that before. So I just think it's funny that someone who legitimately knows famous people would just be like, "Hey, you look like Dennis Quaid." And then Dennis Quaid goes, "Yeah, I know. People say that."
I get that a lot.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Oh, you sound like him too.
Yeah, that's weird. You smell like him, too.
I think I stole his wallet.
The best table, though, that I've ever seen of famous people all together was one night at the same restaurant. Amy Schumer, Gwyneth Paltrow, Reese Witherspoon, and then one other person. I don't remember who it was, but they were all having dinner together at one table.
What?
It's like, yeah, I hope a bomb doesn't go off. This is
Was
amazing.
Gwyneth Paltrow trying to hawk her products on them, and they're like,
Yeah.
we'll look into it.
It was a essential oils pitch. Is all it really was. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Guess what's in my vagina right now? Just guess.
Patchouli. Wrong.
It's an egg.
So this is
it's a cup. What's that cup thing? It's a king's cup.
if you've made it through an hour and a half
Good
of this, you're welcome for the egg joke.
Watch TV.
Easter egg. That's our Easter egg for this podcast.
For Avengers.
Shiny Easter egg.
How much do you think that most of Gwyneth's stuff in the Avengers, the final Avengers movie, when she's in the Iron Man suit, do you think it's a fake Gwyneth Paltrow face?
Oh,
She sure
like
doesn't
it's
look
deep
real.
faked on?
Yeah. Or did they just shoot it in a green screen and then just lay
I
her
feel
stuff
like
on?
I did see actual behind the scenes footage of her wearing the upper torso of
Rescue.
whatever.
Because it just didn't
Rescue.
look real, which, I mean, it shouldn't. It was in space, but it didn't look real.
Right. I
To
mean,
me.
that whole scene is so cuckoo bananas.
Like, she
Yeah.
didn't look real. Yeah, like her face
Well, I
is
think,
like a
I
little...
think it happened to a lot of them where they overlit their faces so you could see who they were, as opposed to being inside of the mat. Like they
Being in the
overlit it so
scene.
the shadows were wrong.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe what it was.
that's a
Just
good
kinda threw
point.
you off.
Where it's like the artists know how they should light them
Yeah.
according to
Yeah.
the scene. But then, but even that's they're flipping around, and that's impossible. Like, how do you light someone to fit into this absurd fight
Yeah.
and have
But that
it work
said,
anyways?
it was
so.
a really good movie. I liked it a lot. I think it was fantastic.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I have friends that, and I get their point, and it is true. It's like, for us going through that journey and watching that movie, it's like, yes, bravo. But then, if you're some Joe Schmo in 20 years that watches that movie, you're going to be like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to watch how many movies for this one to hit?
yeah.
What? It's going to be mass confusion for
That's gonna be
people
brutal.
way off in the future.
Yeah.
Now, does it matter right now? Not at all.
Nope.
They achieved an amazing 10-year run.
Because you could do
With-
pretty well just watching like the Iron Man and Captain America movies, and then the Avengers films. Like you could probably do pretty well in keeping track of the timeline. I mean, Black Panther was great, but didn't really fill in any holes. I haven't seen Captain Marvel yet, but that was one that was like kind of I was all right on.
That one
looked good.
That one is important to introduce Carol Danvers. I don't know. The hard part is that they introduced this character, and then as far as like the universe is concerned, she's just like not there until she decides. And she makes a good point in the movie, like Earth has you, not everyone is like Earth. So she makes a valid point of like why she's not there. But it was also one of those things like, was there a note somewhere that said you've got too many heroes in the same place at one time? Because
it was a Superman thing.
Yeah, well, I mean,
she's got too much power, and it could.
Well, I mean, I made the comment about I think it was Captain America: Winter Soldier when that came out. Of like my one issue with that movie, which I think it's a lot of fun. My one issue is there's a point where the general makes a reference to people they're watching, and Tony Stark comes up in that list, and then when Hydra starts taking on the Thing, Iron Man would have been there in 20 seconds. Like that would have absolutely been on Iron Man's radar of like, hey, hold on.
Yeah, when the solo movie stakes are so high that you're like, we already have the Avengers precedent.
Yeah,
the Avengers would get involved.
Well, especially with like Coulson and Nick Fury, like Iron Man is there. And so the fact that he was just mentioned briefly as like a person of interest was like, okay. Like that's my only issue with that movie though.
Sure.
Was that like that's a little lost perspective on. So they did a good thing with Captain Marvel because it takes place in like the 80s or something like that. So it's still pre-Avengers Initiative, and I did think it was funny that like the big butt kick scene was choreographed with "I'm Just a Girl" by No Doubt. So it's like you do a great job.
The movie got a little stuck.
You do a great job of having like this 80s soundtrack, and then like the big fight scene
early 90s
is just
it's like Nirvana.
Well, that's gonna be the tough thing is that now we're there where the 80s and 90s are nostalgic. So, and it's pop culture, it's mainstream now. So we're gonna have to deal with all the movies using all the songs that are. It's just like if a movie that takes place during Vietnam didn't have a Creedence Clearwater song in it, I'd be so happy. But instead, they all just start with it. They just are like, everything, everything.
The same four songs that have been.
Exactly. But I'm kind of excited about. So what are we looking forward to? The Wonder Woman.
Well, that's
that does look fun to me.
I want to look forward to stuff, but like they just pushed Bond. They just pushed Black Widow. I mean, I think we're literally like in the climate. The movies that I was looking forward to, I don't know when they're coming out now.
Right.
Like I know.
The Fast and Furious, not to.
Well, I think we might. I mean, there's
but
definitely possibility of some of this stuff going straight to consumer though too, and I think that is not a bad idea. You know, I mean, just to or at least have that option, or just put. I mean, you could push it. So
well, yeah, they pushed Bond. Bond was supposed to come out.
It's November.
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving now.
Which is usually what they are.
Correct.
Bond movies usually in November.
They were shooting for the spring break angle, but they lost that. And then I think Black Widow. I just heard was
they must have just made that.
That just happened like yesterday, I think. Okay. But so I don't know what that means for Wonder Woman. I don't know what that means for the rest of the Marvel timeline. I think there are other, I don't want to call them independent, but just like smaller market ones that I was looking forward to that I can't think of right now, but they're definitely going to get pushed out because like Regal Theaters announced that they're closed for 30 days, so the literal timelines of getting this stuff pushed out, who knows when these new releases are going to be done. So I was like, there are movies I'm looking forward to, absolutely, but when we're going to see them, or even if they're going to be theater ready, or capable, it's gonna be tough, man.
Right, because even if they're just finishing up production, can they still, or they have to halt post-production?
Right, right.
In whatever step they're at. Like for me, that new Dune movie, I'm curious about that. With Denis Villeneuve directing it. that's December right now, and so that's way off. But again, yeah,
Yeah.
if everyone has to go home for a while.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I haven't checked in with any of my friends who are on that part of the field yet to see kind of where they're at. But I mean, if you've ever been in those kinds of buildings, generally the editors are kind of alone, or maybe you're in the same bay as a couple people or whatever. But
Right.
it's not,
editors
you're
you can
not
be
spread
pretty
out. You're kind of like, you can be insular, but you can definitely also be like, when you're in the room, it's tight, and so probably best to just put everything on hold, just wait. But there's nothing but content out there. There's nothing but things to watch.
Yeah, things exist. Yeah, I'm waiting for TV to all of a sudden hit that point, especially like network TV that's kind of, has a lead time, but all of a sudden in like 2 months or something, all of a sudden they're going to be like, it's when we had to stop.
Well, yeah, all
shows.
the summer shows I think are gonna fall off. I think because those will be filming like right now. Like you guys, it's a bad example, but like the show that was like exclusively a summer show, like Wipeout, that like the crazy let's beat up a bunch of idiots with foam rollers and shit. That was all shot like right now. Because they're always freezing. Yeah. You can always tell that they are just cold as hell, and they're hating life. But that
water is not
winter,
warm,
that summer
like,
show stuff
when
is
we're
filming right now. And if they had to shut that down, the summer season, I don't know. I hope there are smarter people looking around and saying like, all right, let's just kind of like, let's just rework 2020 in like the BBC model of we filmed a bunch of stuff. We're going to release it when we want. So you'll get to see it, but don't count on it being regular. Doctor Who just wrapped up, which is another good one if you want to binge back, because you can go way back with Doctor Who. They just wrapped up their season, the new season. They just wrapped up, I think, either last weekend or the weekend before, and they even said at the end of that one, like, she'll be back in December. So they're like, we know that it's like March. But you know what? We're done. Yeah. We're done for now, and we'll see you next Christmas kind of thing. So I think a lot of stuff is going to get.
Oh yeah, because they always do like a holiday special, and then who knows when the next season.
I love
starts.
that about British shows. They always have a Christmas special, and I love that they do that.
Yeah,
I want to bring that to here, because there's something fun about that. Because it's always a one-off too. Because most series in Britain are 6-episode arcs, or 6 episodes.
Yeah,
and then they have their Christmas special. And everybody's got their New Year's Eve show, the live shows, and then they kind of, take a break. And I love that.
Yeah,
I super cool.
started watching an old show, the IT Crowd, which is kind of like I don't want to call it like The Office, but it's very specific to IT. So there's a lot of IT jokes in there. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's like 6 seasons, but they're only 6 episodes per season, and they're 21 minutes.
Though, with that. That style of show, that British like 50 frames per second in the studio, like real weird. But there's a lot of very, very famous people on that show who weren't famous then, of course.
Yeah,
who are now.
They're famous now.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of good talent in there. But yeah, it's just an interesting one because it's definitely not capitalism driven, and I think that's interesting too. Is that they're just like, hey, we made 6 episodes, that's a season, moving on. Like they're not, we got to get that 22, and we got to make sure that it's 28 minutes so that we can sell 7 minutes of ad time, and they just are like, whatever. Watch it or don't.
Shows in Britain like that are just like almost like little to no makeup. You ain't getting your teeth fixed.
Right.
You just going, and it's just you being you, and I love that. It's like that's what makes those shows so great.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you get actors that you would never get here because they're just really good, as opposed to they're the enough of a full package.
Right.
Being number one, pretty on the eyes, and then number 2, they can do whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so anything else you have in mind?
I'll say real quick a thing that did come out, and I think maybe it's Knives Out, talking about Rian Johnson, where all the vitriol he got in Star Wars, or half vitriol he got. That was a very fun movie, and I feel like something that shows again, he's good, and if he maybe stays away from franchises that
established
established franchises, and he does his own stories, it just sounds like he's gonna do his own sequel, and so that was good.
Yeah, he needs
Conan,
to go he needs to go the Christopher Nolan route of just having good ideas and then just executing the good idea and not trying to work into a franchise.
Right. And it sounded like, him making that Star Wars movie, too, for his own sake, it seemed like it was kind of a nightmare. And he's going, I hope this works. I don't know. Boy, this is a nightmare. Which is
if they bring in Tony Gilroy to darken up your film for you, something's going wrong. Something's going awry in that process. I
was going to talk real quick. We're a podcast, not to compete, but I started, now that the Conan podcasts are showing up on YouTube. Yeah. That's something that's kind of reignited my enjoyment of Conan. Because I feel like I've kind of dropped off my fandom on him for a while. Especially getting a better sense of how he is with his employees. Because when you get the first glimpse, like you do with his documentary, he just seems like a massive asshole. And you kind of go, oh, I think I don't like this guy. But then you start to get how it's more like this big brother. Like he's being an asshole to his coworkers, but you get the dynamic better, and you go, oh, okay, I get it. Like, yes, he doesn't stop. Yes, he has his issues, but it's you still love him despite it. So,
I think it's cool. Like a lot of actors and famous people are doing that. They're allowing cameras in to show them just being raw and normal. Kevin Hart, the aforementioned Taylor Swift, things like that, which are really just great. It's like, hey, here I am. I am extremely, extremely famous, but I'm also not, by any stretch of the imagination, perfect. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, if they really allow it to happen, and really let a genuine sense of themselves show up on film. That's great.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm filming this whole thing just so people can see I'm not perfect.
I'm not perfect.
I know what
I don't remember what a satyr is.
Yeah.
I'm just like you, Joe Schmo.
Right. I'm just like you guys. I've got no idea what a horse's leg looks like.
I don't know mythical creatures.
Yeah. I haven't seen a horse in weeks.
I'm not getting into this geek shit, okay, guys?
The name of our show. Well, hopefully that's helpful. Once again, if you're with us still.
This was more for us, and then tangential. If someone enjoys it, then great. Good for them.
Well, I mean, exactly. The other hard part to put a note, it's like it's hard to wrap up in a single string of thought all the good stuff that's out there, because there is a lot of really good stuff out there. This is just like the stuff that has piqued us for a bit, and there's stuff that is like 10 years old that like if you haven't watched it, you should watch it. Like if you have not seen The Office or Scrubs or the original Curb Your Enthusiasm or stuff like
Breaking Bad,
like there's still so much good stuff out there that this is really just kind of giving you what you could peek on right now that might actually show up in like your trending on insert streaming service here, so you don't have to like search too deep. But we could go on and on and on. But there's a lot of really good content. And I think the other part of it too is a lot of the services now are starting to dial in those search algorithms. So if you find 3 or 4 things that you do enjoy, you're more than likely going to land on something that you will like, 2 you have heard somebody talk about, or 3 you're not sure if you're going to like, but if you give it that shot, you might end up being like, wow, this showed up on there. And then you might throw off the entire algorithm with your kids watching Netflix, and you get like the Wiggles show up as a recommended, and that's not something I'm going to watch.
So speak what do yourself.
You? Yeah. So
I'm a wiggler over here. I don't know if that's what the
is that what you call those guys? The wigglers. Hardcore wiggler.
They're on a list. They're on a government list. Let's just put it that way. They're on a watch list.
So, if what haven't you watched that you're going to?
The Boys. We talked about that on. Yeah. That's one that I'm holding off on. I also have the HBO Watchmen, which I was a fan of the movie.
I started watching it, and then I didn't have the background, and I never picked it back up.
Yeah, I stacked all those up. I'm disappointed to hear that they're not making a season 2, which just makes me more excited to watch this one, which means that they start, finish, nice package, call it a day.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like. Yeah. Friends at work that are really into that and were into the graphic novel and everything, they were like, they were pumped about
Yeah.
The Watchmen.
Yeah, so I think Avenue 5 we talked about. I think it's got like one episode left, or maybe 2 episodes. Outsider finished. The Boys.
Curb Your Enthusiasm has one more episode next week.
Nice.
Yeah, of this season. And those are like, who knows? If he does another one, he will maybe. Yeah, if they want to do it.
I saw an ad for, what was it?
What They Do in the Shadows. Sorry, I'm just thinking.
Yes.
I didn't watch the first season, and I kind of missed the ability to watch it on demand, or at least all of it. So I haven't seen any of it, but I've heard good things about it.
Yes, that one is
second
super good.
season, I think, is coming.
Yeah.
So
That's the vampire.
Mockumentary.
yeah, that's the Taika
Yeah,
Waititi.
Waititi, gotcha.
Whatever.
Yeah, that show is super. That one actually is super good too.
I watched the first season and it was hilarious. Like really well done, beautifully done. Yeah, I mean, the Flight of the Conchords guys are hysterical, and yeah, it's a great show.
And then, but yeah, I mean, I've seen Mandalorian, but that's easily a show I could go back and just completely watch again.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of the,
Clone Wars to that extent, just because we're on the Star Wars Disney Plus. That's got its last season that they brought back after, that got canceled when Disney bought Star Wars, and Disney was like, oh, we need to do.
Did you ever watch the Rebels? That offshoot?
I did. Yeah, it was fine.
Where would you finish Clone Wars before you watch Rebels, or would you try to sneak it in? Like, would you try to like simul watch them, or would you finish one and then?
You can watch them independently. They're not a companion piece in that same way, because Rebels. Well,
I'm sure there's cross.
I guess it's good. It is actually good to watch some Clone Wars at least, because they do bring Clone Wars characters into Rebels.
Okay.
So
because they brought them,
if you haven't
into
seen any
Mandalorian.
Clone Wars, yes.
So that's why I was wondering, like timeline wise, which ones you should.
Yeah, it's probably
in.
better to watch Clone Wars, and Clone Wars takes a little bit to get going. They made the movie first that released in theaters. That was like, but as they get into second, third season, fourth season, it's like it becomes a really good show, and they have arcs that. It bounces all over the place because it's Clone Wars, so it's like, oh, now we're going to follow, and so you have the Jar Jar episodes here and there, some arcs there, and you have, I have to follow droids for like 5 episoeds in one of the later seasons, and you're like, I don't care.
The one thing that got me when because I did try to watch it, I watched it on Netflix, and which kept track of which ones I had seen, and then when it switched over to Disney Plus, I lost that, so I lost where I was. Right. But I did think it was really funny that at the beginning of each show, it almost had that Starship Troopers, like, yesterday in the war we had kind of this and this and this and this.
Almost a little bit of would you like to know more? Yeah, a little bit of like propaganda, even ishy-wishy,
which I thought was
like fan
really
theories of exactly. Yeah, it's got its own little thing, and it might take you a second to get used to animation, get used to, at first you're like, it's a kid show at first, but then it gets into things, and you're just like, oh no, I can just enjoy this straight up. I watched the first 4 episodes of the new season's out, and I was like, yeah, this is still a good show. Like, that's Dave Filoni, who also worked on and directed 1 or 2 Mandalorian episodes. He did Rebels, he did the Resistance cartoon, so... He's kind of one of the, kind of the gatekeeper over there.
Yeah, that's cool. So
Lucasfilm. So yeah.
And then I've got I've got my wall of DVDs that I'll probably burn through here. We'll see. I'm watching through. I'm not going to make it through all of the Oscar noms.
I was terrible this year.
But that's a whole nother episode. We could talk about the Oscars.
Yeah. We'll do that, and then. I want to do an episode. Maybe we can do that next or something. I want to do an episode about why do we watch movies? What do you like about it?
Sure.
What is it that makes us so happy about watching movies? But I will say, the one that I very rarely watch a movie twice. I very, very rarely do, especially within a short period of time. But there's only a handful of movies I've done that to, and they've all been Tarantino. And one of them recently is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
That movie was just off the charts for me, and I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's because I like all that real life stuff, like all the places they went to. I know that. I felt the vibe. Everything about it was just like so real to me. Such a great film. Definitely highly recommend that. Got 20 minutes into Joker and shut that one off. That was a stinker. I mean,
I
love
like Joker.
I love
Okay,
Todd
I
Phillips
wasn't
and
in
stuff,
love
but
with
I
him,
was
but
just
yeah.
like, no. I couldn't even deal with. If we weren't in such, I don't know if I should say this.
Do it.
If we weren't in,
You're the
such
one
a,
editing.
Yeah, no, we're letting this run. I'm not editing anymore.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
then,
if you're okay with that.
think twice. I don't care.
Yeah.
Here
So
I
anyways.
am, Timo
Yeah.
Johnson over here doesn't care.
No, yeah. I can sit through an hour, 2 hours of us talking. I can't bleep things out anymore. It takes too much time.
Yeah, it's true. It's
Let's
true.
try to
But we'll talk about that.
self-censor.
Anyways, so yeah, exactly. But what I will say is that if we weren't in such a, it's a wonderful thing, but such a sensitive time about mental illness and that sort of thing, I think that this movie would have come and gone. But because it's such a buzzword in our society, and we are trying to better ourselves and get better, it became something to talk about, and it became part of the reason why people love this movie so much. I personally think that Joaquin Phoenix as an actor is very hit or miss for me. I think in Her, he was unbelievably brilliant,
Yeah.
and I think that in the Johnny Cash biopic, he was horrendous. So there's just those two sides of him that I thought the Joker was a little more on the Johnny Cash side than it was on the Her side. So I thought it was a piece of trash, honestly, but that was just me. 20 minutes of trash. I guess I should have given it more time.
No, I think it wasn't going to get better for you.
Yeah.
If you start out 20 minutes of trash, you weren't going to
That's true. And that
walk
yeah,
out
that,
of there going, I changed my mind.
It's
no.
not trash.
If you were not on board right away, you're...
Yeah.
yeah, that
You made
movie's
the right
not going to
decision.
change your mind. It's not. It's the nature of that movie is not designed to make you feel
Yeah,
good. So
right.
if you're not going in excited, it's not going to make you feel any better. It's definitely
Right.
like when you. It's one of those movies where, I have certain movies. I call them Saturday movies where you can have them on and you can be doing stuff and enjoying the movie and whatever you're doing at the same time. There's some certain movies that you kind of need to stop everything you're doing and sit down. And Joker is one of those movies. You can't just kind of have that in the background playing. You need to sit down, set stuff aside, and watch it. And if that's not your mindset when you're watching it, you're never going to get there.
That's how I watch every movie, though. I don't do background movies. It's just not how I roll. I want to sit and just watch it, and so that's why I was just like, ugh, I can't get
I
immersed
thought
in this
there was
world.
some good cinematography, though. I thought there were
Oh
some
sure,
good
yeah,
shots
no, it was
in the
beautiful.
movie.
The coloring was amazing. That aspect of it was just brilliant. But maybe it was because I was coming hot off of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I loved it. And so maybe that was part of the
Possible.
thing. But I was in love with The Irishman. I thought it was a fantastic movie. So
It's a really
you
good
know,
movie.
there's just,
I think one of the
Yeah.
things I've heard about the Joker and what people had problems with it is that using that character as the title carries knowledge. Like it has connotation already. So could you have called the movie something else and not tried to tie it into the DC universe? Probably. I think you could have. I think you could have. When you have
The Jacker.
yes, yeah. But when you have Joker,
the Hoker.
you're anticipating things. You're waiting for the Batman reference.
Yeah.
You're waiting for if they had not done that, not made it Joker, made it something just a story, almost like Falling Down with Michael Douglas back in the day, like
Sure,
just
right.
done that,
Yeah.
then I think it would have. But if you're either
Well,
on
it
or
would
off,
have just been called Taxi Driver. Because
Right.
that's
Yeah.
pretty much
well,
kind
yeah,
of what
that
this
too.
movie was, too.
Like I
right?
said,
Yeah.
it carried knowledge and connotation with it that either you're in or out, and then depending on how deep you are in the mythos of like knowing who the Joker is, or in some universes they don't know who the Joker is. He has no. So like the fact that there's a file like that bothered some people. So it was that kind of thing that I think, depending on how much you read into it between the lines and the subtext of DC
Yeah.
knowledge, that some people were like, I'm out, just flat out. And
Yeah.
for me, it was like I could lift and separate like a good bra and just just watch it and let the story wash over, knowing that it's going to be in the DC universe type thing, and just in that like alternate universe version of Joker. So that's how I
Well,
did
see,
it.
and that's the thing that didn't bother me at all. I wasn't even coming at it from that point
Yeah.
of view. I thought that, production design and all that stuff, it looked incredible. And what I saw of De Niro, he was great, But there's a difference between an actor who goes inside himself to create a performance that is going to draw you in, and then there's a performance where an actor goes inside of himself and just stays there.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what it was. He went so far inside of himself that he just stayed there. Now there's nothing left that was even remotely relatable for me to want to watch. And I don't think characters always have to be relatable or likable or anything like that. It's just like I couldn't see anything of myself in him, but I did in De Niro's character.
Sure.
I totally saw like his sort of pain and his sadness inside.
You're talking about The Irishman, right?
No, I'm talking about Joker, because De Niro playing the host.
Yeah.
What's
it's
so
funny because you haven't seen the whole movie.
Right, but I'm just saying the performance that I saw was great, but it's a character that you can relate to. I just think the Joker was just like, I don't know, it was just...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, his performance at the end,
bad.
De Niro's in particular, it's really mind-blowing. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll watch it once all the other content in the world has been taken away.
Can you just shoot video of your face while you're watching it, though? And just like you're disgusted.
You know, I've looked into that. This is a whole
myself.
other side story. For a while, I looked into because you
The Shia LaBeouf
well, no,
thing.
so you can't stream movies on Twitch or any sort of streaming service, but you can do like reaction videos. So
You can stream yourself watching
yeah, you can stream
it,
yourself watching a movie.
Right, you just say, okay, yeah, start now.
I think that
Here we are.
that watching that movie would be a lot like my facial reaction to what a difference between a centaur and a freaking whatever that was.
Right.
Like that.
What am I supposed to get from this? Yeah.
No, but that was
it all looks like a fucking horse to me.
That was a legitimate moment in time where I was like, what world am I living in? These are horse legs, and my best friends are disagreeing with me. Do I not know what a horse is?
Well, it wasn't so much the horse, but I think we were getting caught up on going, are you thinking 4 legs or 2 legs? That's where we were. That's where I was.
Well, you can
sitting.
still be I'm sure there's
Yes, I
horses out
understand.
there.
You can be a 2-legged but still
Yeah.
be horse-legged. I get that.
You can still
You could be a
man.
bipedal horse.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you guys had just said it's a satyr's a goat, I would have been good. You know what I mean? You guys got to learn how to communicate.
What's a satyr? It's a goat. Period. Move on. What's a centaur? It's
Next
a
question,
horse.
the Joker.
Next.
What'd you think? Yeah.
I thought the Joker movie too, though, was like. I guess I would go as far as saying there was a little bit of irresponsibility. I think they wanted to leave it like morally ambiguous to go, well, what do you think? And at the end, I was like, this feels all right. They're just gonna have all this shit happen and kind of go, burn the world down.
Yeah.
We're not gonna say yes or no.
Yeah.
Figure it out. And you're like, okay.
Just
There
the bit in the train where you kind of like here's the thing.
How far did you get? How far did you get? You got to the train. Wait, what train?
So I guess I got to the train. So I don't know how far I got because I shut it off,
Well-
but I don't remember. So the bit where the guys or the white guys are kind of picking on the
yeah,
lady, and then
like
he
the
stands
Wall
up and
Street
he kind
dudes.
of kills him. So first of all,
kind of kills him.
Just a little. Just
does,
a little bit.
right?
Shoots the guy in the head, sort of.
yeah,
Sorry, that was just
that's
funny.
not how people behave. They just don't. Like people are evil and mean and pick on people and stuff like that.
Like
but
the
the
Wall
way
Street
those
guys or
guys
whatever.
acted,
Yeah.
that's not how humans act when they're picking on somebody. They don't say words like that. They don't talk like that. And then it just got disgustingly violent, way too realistically violent, and it was just gross. And I just didn't like it. It just was
That's
gross.
fair. It's not
garbage
for
movie.
everyone.
No.
But I feel like Tarantino with violence likes to
Okay,
do that
fair.
same thing,
Fair point.
right?
But
no, I'm not trying to.
No,
Yes, he
but
was.
I think you,
No, I just because when I think of someone who just likes to have
Oh,
like
yeah, 100%.
kind of this
Yeah, yeah.
conversational thing,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden this like spark of extreme violence, you go,
Right.
oh,
I
like
would
dirty feeling
say
violence.
strangely the reason why Tarantino's version of violence strikes me differently is because, and he's even said this, is his films are more like comedies. than anything in so many ways. They're very, very like funny, and they're humorous more. And I think the violence comes off like comedic timing rather than coming off as violence.
As a shock.
And I know that sounds terrible because they're disgustingly grotesque at some certain points. Like,
well, yeah,
like
but it's
Once
movies.
Upon a Time, it was like people
yeah.
getting shot in the face and burned alive. And I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff. But it's the way in which he shoots it and films it and times it, like the long drawn out, focus, the crazy rack focus, the crazy punch-ins. Like, it's all this stuff that just feels more like an old kung fu movie, or it feels more like a movie from the 70s than it does a movie that we're trying to make a point about mental illness and violence.
Sure.
That's what.
Well, it's like I finally watched the Western one that was 70
Django?
millimeter, the Hateful Eight. No,
Oh, Hateful
what was
Eight.
it? Was it
Hateful Eight. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did not like that movie at all. Strangely.
But again, speaking to your thing, there's violence, but I laughed.
Right. Yeah.
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 Right. Whereas like the Joker, I tried my hardest not to laugh out loud
Right.
It's not like
and
a crazy
tried
person.
to keep it in my pants.
Yeah. We sound like him
So-
laughing out loud. Like a it was just brutal, man. Just brutal. It was like an acting class, like in a bad way. Ugh.
Oh, sure. Him going up to, you saw when he went on stage, right?
Yeah.
You got that far, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, right.
just him sitting in the train talking to the little kid. And she's like, "Don't bother my son." And he's like, he starts to do that laughing thing. Those are
right.
acting techniques that we would do in improv class. Where it's like, hey, start slow and then work your way up and then full bore. That's all it was. It was just freaking acting techniques. Very annoying. So I loved it. It was a great movie. 10 out of 10.
The Jacker, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Well, I'm gonna go watch Frozen 2 now.
Watch Frozen 2. Watch Cats when it comes out on digital.
Ooh,
That's
yeah.
the other one I wrote down.
Can't wait for that.
I gave them some of my money.
Did you really?
I did.
Did you?
Oh,
get
I
it
watched
back?
it. I watched it with a group, though. We went and we were not sober
Was it a group of
one
cats?
way or the other. What? Yeah.
Was it a group of cats? Yeah.
It was my gang. My cat gang.
Yeah.
Was it horrible?
It was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was rough, but pretty. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
It felt like 10 minutes would pass, and it kind of felt like it was an hour. It was like painful, yet at the same time, it was
great.
like so fascinating. You're just like, what is this?
That's a good quality to have in a film.
It's pretty
Where
great. in
time
that
just
sense.
can't go fast enough.
Right, but at the same time, you're kind of like, I don't regret experiencing this. And I'll say, there's a touring show happening, and like right when the movie came out, the touring show was in Boston, and I was like,
Gotta go.
I talked to my roommate about this stupid movie. I was like, we gotta watch this stupid stage. I gotta see what this stage show was, because it's such a dumb concept. It makes no sense. And so we went and watched like the Broadway version. And oh my god,
It makes sense from the perspective of the mid '80s. Like
It makes sense
the
for
rapid
stage.
affluence of the mid '80s rock opera. Everyone's just like throwing money into the system, doing cocaine, getting crazy.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
makes sense.
Right. And it makes sense
Does
on
not make
stage
sense now.
where you don't care about, like they tried to make a story out of it.
Well, it's
but,
like it's a
yeah,
it's a
you're
fixed
like,
camera on stage. Like you don't have to worry about
Right.
camera placement and cinematography. It's all
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
so
and
It's
two
the
is
lighting and the
visually
costumes
translate.
and
Yeah, and like musicals on stage are like, let's be honest, musicals are stupid. They're all so dumb, right? But it's like they're
wonderful.
catchy, and they. It's not that some that can't be meaningful or whatever, but yeah, that Cats, I get why it lived on Broadway for 10,000 years. I get. I
Well,
get it. It
Chicago
and it
worked.
also
Well, no,
it,
but see,
it exposes the art form
Yeah, my-
too as like being frivolous. You're like, it's popcorn. Like I feel like theater people want to rip on movie popcorn loving like blockbusters, but you're like, that's what a musical is. It's no different. It's going to different sensibilities, but it's the same.
my hiccups with musicals are normally when you do a musical, you make a choice when writing the songs. You either do rhyming rhythmic singing or you do sing dialogue. And this and Cats in particular tries to do rhythm rhyming, but it does it to sing dialogue using made up words. That's what the disconnect is. That
Why are the words made up?
well, just it's part of the fancifulness of Cats.
Right.
It's not rhyme. It's not.
They have
rhyme.
this weird
like Chicago
cult.
is rhyme dialogue. Like it's not iambic pentameter, but it's rhyming stanzas set to music. It's kind of how like Les Mis was really hard to watch because it was sung dialogue. Cats is sung dialogue with nonsense dialogue.
Well, so but see that's so that's opera.
What is
Opera is
Aria and recitative.
Yeah,
right?
So the recitative is that sung dialogue. Most opera there
like the
isn't
talking,
any talking. There's like just a smattering here or there of actual dialogue, but then the rest of it is sung, and then the arias are the songs. So rock opera was precisely that, where they were doing the exact same thing as opera, but it was in a more modern setting. But if you're just making it gibberish, and we're not in a time period where opera is relevant to the masses,
fair,
to
yeah.
pop culture. So it doesn't necessarily work. But I mean, that is, at its core, what it truly is. But yeah.
Well, it's funny because Cats, just to go real quick here, I don't know how much longer you guys want to go. I have nothing to do.
3 hours.
So, so it's like there's this weird little cult in this world of the cats where you can become a jellicle cat, and then essentially you could go on The Voice, and if you win this performance of if your little song about yourself is the best, then you get shot up to the sun or something.
you get to ascend
shit.
and become special.
You get to be
Wait,
reborn.
this is in the movie?
Yep.
You spend a life.
That's
it's
the
kind
plot.
of
That's
in the
the
musical,
plot of the movie.
and so they flesh it out a little more. They add a little more to the movie from the stage production, but that's what this story is. And it's jellicle cats. And you're like, what the hell's a jellicle cat? And they have like 5 songs about it, and you walk out with no better idea of what the hell they're talking about. It's like you're just like, I don't know what happened. Yeah, a lot of cocaine, a lot of drugs.
They have you go on
went
The
into
Voice,
making
like the
this.
show The Voice?
No, that's the concept. It's that there are
concept,
basically the whole show is there's one old cat who chooses one cat
Deuteronomy.
every year to become a jellicle cat, and in order to do that, you take the various cat varieties, and they all compete by singing their song, and then she chooses. So there's like there's an old fat cat, and there's a young playful cat, and there's a I'll do whatever I want cat, and so it's
Let me guess who's who. The fat cat was James
Yeah.
Corden. The
there's
young
a couple.
cat
Or
was
Rebel
Taylor
Wilson.
Swift.
no.
Oh.
No, she wasn't.
She was
actually.
like the villain
I don't know, it's
sidekick.
like a new.
Oh.
Yeah,
oh.
she's McCavity's. One
There's-
of McCavity's.
Yeah, so and then so the
That's
What
Idris
was-
Elba.
I was just gonna say, what was Rainn Wilson? No, what's her
Rebel
name?
Wilson.
Yeah, Rebel
She
Wilson.
was like the
Rebel
she was
Wilson.
like the overfed lazy house cat.
She's a house cat.
Gotcha.
And then there's the one
Yeah.
who kind of does whatever he wants, and then there's one that's kind of like,
The railway cat.
like a
Oh, God,
railway
what's his
cat.
name?
Then there's like Mr. Mephistopheles, which is like the magic cat. And then there's the new cat who shows up, which fires off the whole process. So you're following her
Right.
as she discovers these different cat types, and then
Played by
the new girl, the ballerina girl, the one that they got mad.
Kimmy Franco.
The one that they
I
got
don't know
mad
what her
that
name
she's African American, but her cat is white furred.
The cat was white,
oh.
but also the stage cat
Sounds
was
kinda
white.
cool.
So yeah,
Right.
they're like,
People
we're
just
we're
find a
doing
bunch of shit to
diversity
get mad
casting,
about,
but
yeah.
then
Yeah, gotta find something
so-
to be
but it was-
upset
it
about.
was-
And Judi Dench played the old lady,
She plays
right?
like
old cat?
Yeah,
like
she's
the
Deuteronomy.
mage or the sage, and then what's his name? Gandalf.
James Earl Jones.
Gandalf plays
Oh.
like the old
the old theater
theater
cat.
cat. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So
oh my
It's-
god!
it's-
But like
I'll
at
have
the
to
end of
watch
the
it,
day,
maybe.
it's
you
bonkers.
see all these actors and their take on being a cat.
Yeah.
It's like, and James Corden, I feel like he got a Razzie, but I feel like he's the one that knew exactly what he was signing up for.
Oh, for sure.
And and I think all of them were probably like that, like, oh, this sounds like a crazy shit show. Let's do it. You know, like like you can make fun of any of them for being in it, but yeah, he in particular, I was like, yeah, he knew what he was doing. He knew how to ham it up. Like, he's
well,
not
and that
taking
was the
it seriously.
case. I think
It's so
everybody
stupid.
really, knew what they were getting into, and that's kind of the fun of it. Was
Right.
you never know if a movie's going to be good or bad. I mean, you don't know if it's going to be successful or not. And
Right.
but what's funny is like James Corden is I don't know if he's won a Tony, but he's certainly been in that world.
Right.
Of,
He's talented,
of
for
being, nominated or whatever, I think. And so what was that show called? The History Boys. And so coming up in the theater like he did was, he was magical. That's what got him to a place of stardom, more or less, So I really believe that every actor just wants to be in musicals. I think that if you had a choice and it was like, I'm going to pay you the exact same amount, you can either be in The Godfather 4 or you can be in Cats on stage. 9 out of 10 actors are going to choose Cats on stage because there's something extremely freeing and like crazy about being that kind of an actor. I think everyone just wants to be a musical actor at the end of the day, because I think it's just scratching some itch that we have from being a child, and just truly playing. So, but yeah, I'm gonna watch it. Why not? Not right now, but someday.
It's a trip. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's amazing. Well, thank you for everyone who watched on the YouTube. Thank you to everybody who's listened to our podcast for the last 2 hours. You're welcome, I guess.
Expect more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We're only going to get longer from here. This was the this was the short one.
This was the quickest one we got.
We could be more tangential.
Yeah.
We had that
forward.
Okay,
moment of
so
regret
we'll call that
silence.
the end.